All right, everyone. Last looks. Right on set. Roll sound. Sound speed. Roll camera. Camera speed. Scene 1. Take 1. Market. And action. Hi, I'm Ed, the host of Savannah on Film, and we explore the economic and cultural impact and values of the film industry in Savannah through conversations with people who work in the industry in related fields. You can find us here on WRUU-LP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with global soul. Hello, everyone. Hello, the world. Hello, Savannah. Everybody listening and watching out there. This is Savannah on Film. I'm your host, Ed Ciucevich, and another spectacular show. I promise you, you are going to walk away from this podcast. You're going to be saying, from this radio show, from this, you're going to be like, wow, this is like the greatest thing ever. Okay, there's my enthusiasm level with my pandemic hair that I'm rocking here. I'm welcoming to the show. That was the weirdest opening I've ever done. I'm welcoming to the show a fantastic gentleman here. He has so many credits, so much things from being a director, a writer, producer. He's been a cinematographer, an editor. He's worked camera and electric. He's done it all. You name it, this gentleman has done it. A twice winner of the Edward R. Murrow Awards, which is possibly one of the highest awards you can win in the industry. He's won it twice for his documentary Hurricane Matthew: Inside the Storm, and also celebrating Black History, which was like a 4-part segment there. And he's done so much, videographer, photographer. He is the director of production for the Tate Global Media group there, and along with Tate Law Group. And I want to welcome you to the show, Drew Hunt. Welcome.
Wow, that was an intro. Wow,
is that an intro? I never know how to end it, and I just keep going and
just keep going until it just feels right. You go,
yeah.
Welcome.
Well, you're welcome. You're done. You're
no worries.
This was a great show. Thank y'all for listening. But
well, thanks, Ed.
Yeah. Our mission here is to explore the economic and cultural impact of the film industry in Savannah through conversations with people who work in the industry and related fields. And we're here on the fantabulous. I was told that's not a word, so I'll say it again. Fantabulous. WRUU. 107.5 FM. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with global soul. And so
you pull that out of the
global soul. I don't one time I did one of my shows and I really had a sore throat, and so that global soul sounded like the Emperor from Star Wars. Global soul. It was crazy. But I don't know where to start with you. I was putting together my notes for this, and I'm just like, wow.
You can start at the beginning, and then when we get to the end, we'll stop.
There was a mom, there was a dad, there was no.
Yes,
too
yes.
too far back.
It's pretty nuclear with that. Yeah.
Pretty nuclear. Um, and you're a Savannah native, so yay.
Yes. Yes, I
Somebody from Savannah doing fantastic things. Let's see. I want to go straight to like the big one, the Edward R. Murrow Awards. The
sure.
fact that you won it 2 years in a row. Um, for the first one was Hurricane Matthew Inside the Storm. I remember watching that. We all lived through that. Hurricane Matthew was something that really changed Savannah in a lot of ways and hit a lot of us in a lot of personal ways. And I still remember that documentary, and it was very well done. It was very. What was the experience? Because what can you tell us about that whole experience?
So, being a news photojournalist for, I guess at that point was like maybe 15 years, or so when was Matthew? My God, the time flies. It was 15, 16 years of doing news journalism. It
Yeah.
was literally like the first hurricane that I was like really in, like was in the middle of as it, and granted, Matthew did not fully hit us. You know what I mean? It didn't, technically make landfall,
Right.
but it got within, 30, 40 miles. It was close enough to make us hurt. So it was, I mean, it was a significant storm. I mean, it was a very strong storm, and it was the first one that I'd ever been like actively out covering. I myself personally, from my experience, I was out in was probably working, I forget what the final total was, but it was something around 28, 29, like 30 hours straight.
Wow.
Um, was supposed to get a break, but then we had a relatively new reporter who, I mean, she'd literally been there a month. She didn't know the area. She didn't know anything. And they were like, well, we don't have anyone to send her out with. And I said, okay, well, I'll just take her with me. I'll go back out. Um, and I just took a whole lot of coffee with me. And when the whole thing was over, I was talking with all the other reporters and the photographers, and we just listened to all of our different experiences.
Mhm.
And I was like, this could actually be a really good documentary, because we can give a firsthand account. And then a friend of mine who had evacuated, he when the place he evacuated to was somewhere near like Augusta, so he couldn't really get Savannah stations to see what was happening. So he finally did, or no, he didn't. I'm sorry. He called me and said, "What happened down here? We couldn't get anything. We didn't have internet, so we couldn't, because it was like a hunting lodge. We didn't really have internet, so we couldn't watch anything going on in Savannah." So that, you know, set a seed in me that was like, you know what? There's a whole group of people that have no idea what actually happened in this town. They're not going to, and they didn't come back for several days. So a lot of the cleanup had taken place. So, I had hours and hours of raw footage at my disposal. I went to the news director, and I went to the general manager, and I pitched to both of them. I was like, could I put together I estimate about an hour documentary. So, detailing our experience in this storm and what it takes for us to cover something like this, and to give people that inside look as to what happened that night as the storm was just rolling over the entire area, Savannah and South Carolina. And they said, well, yeah, but how many people is going to be involved in this? I was like, no, no, I'll do it. I'll do the interviews with everyone, and then I'll do the editing and everything. But it's going to be it's going to be a tight project, but I think I can get it done, pretty good. And then they gave me basically 3 weeks to get it done, to go
Wow.
through all of this, to interview everybody. I unfortunately didn't get to interview like everybody. I tried to interview all the reporters and stuff who were out there, but schedules just get in the way, and stuff happens. But it was great to hear people tell their stories and to tell their experiences and just share what it was really like around here for the first major hurricane to hit this area or come close to this area in
Because
40 years.
we've been so complacent and lucky in
Absolutely.
in the Savannah area, and if we look at 2020, my gosh, the especially Louisiana. They got hit
Oh,
like what, 3 to 5 times.
right.
It's ridiculous.
And significant storms at times. Like it was,
Yes,
ones and twos, but I mean they were nasty.
and I remember one of the lasting images I have from Savannah of the cleanup, because getting down the street to where we lived, we didn't have power for a while. And back then, I don't know if we were 4G or 3G, but I remember having not enough G's on my phone. And I found out that Verizon runs their signal through Comcast, or at least at that, or Xfinity, at least at that time they used to, because we didn't have power. And, there were a lot of people hit hard. And thankfully, our house at the time was not damaged, but there was damage on the road leading to it. I mean, old trees. Savannah's known for its oak trees and everything else, and all these trees that have been here hundreds of years. And it took a while for them to even clear a path down the road that got out of the neighborhood. And but one of the lasting images was the National Guard Armory, which is on Eisenhower. I
Mhm.
remember after the cleanup, the pile, and that is a big. I don't
Yeah,
know how big you would. I'm not good with dimensions, but
I'm not
it's
either,
like a
but
very
it's
large
massive.
parking lot,
It
it's
is.
grass lot, and it was massive. And I think back about that, I think I came across a picture I had the other day or something of that, and I was like, wow, that's amazing. That just piled up, several feet, just the
Right.
trees. And we, being on the coast, we've got that little kind of, Savannah kind of cuts in a little
Yeah, it
bit.
curves in.
Yeah, and so we've always I think the last thing to really hit us was in '79. I was 9 years old. It was Hurricane David, but it actually came in, I think, as a weak or a strong tropical storm, and it created so much havoc. And we hadn't really had that much kind of like power outages and trees down and stuff like that, I think, since then. And everything else, like Floyd. I remember Floyd in '99. I remember
Right.
Hugo in '89, and they all at that last minute take that tilt that either go out in the ocean, or like Hugo in '89, tore up parts of Charleston. And my dad used to work for Savannah Electric, which is now Georgia Power. And I remember him back in '89. He had to be on the phone bank there downtown at the building, which is now a hotel. And he had to answer the phones because they had all the linemen's trucks along I-16
Right.
waiting for the storm to pass to come back into town. And times have changed now. And we've gotten smarter about how we do the contraflow, as they call it, all 4 lanes of I-16 to a certain point
Right.
exiting. And thank God during a pandemic this year we did not have to evacuate Savannah,
Yeah, we definitely
because
dodged
that would have been just like the worst thing on top of everything that we're all having to deal with this year. And
that.
yeah, but it's a powerful, it was very, very powerful documentary. And I would say a well-earned win for you, and fantastic story behind that. I mean, 30 hours just going nonstop to get that footage, and then
Yeah.
having very little time to put it all together, and to put it together so well as you did. Another award. So you followed up the next year with and correct me if I get this wrong, but it was called celebrating. I can't say celebrating for some reason. Celebrating Black History. And
Yes.
it was best featured news reporting for a segment on the Leesburg Stockade Girls,
Yes.
which is an incredibly powerful story that I'm not sure that I knew of until I started researching this. And would you like to kind of bring everybody up to speed on that?
Yeah.
And
So the that's another story that I had no idea existed. I had no idea that this had happened. I was working with the incredible Kim Gusby over at WSAV, and
yeah,
we she told me this story, and we were gonna have to drive to Americus to go do it. And I was like, Americus? Yeah, that's a haul for this story. And as we were driving, she was telling me the story. And so what happened was a dozen or so girls between the ages of, yeah, I'm sure I'm missing some facts here, but between the ages of like 10 and like 15 or 16, African American girls in Americas were snuck into a whites only theater. And this is 19 sometime in the 60s during,
It's like
the civil rights
64
movements. Yeah,
roughly.
it
Yeah.
was somewhere around there. And they uh were detained for it. They were essentially arrested, thrown in the stockade, which was nothing more than a cinder block building with, your stereotypical jail bars, for windows, and what can only be really described as a literal pot to piss in the corner. I mean, it was an awful place that definitely you shouldn't keep anybody there. It's clearly a holdover from a different time of where you would hold somebody as you're waiting to transfer them somewhere else. Well, these girls were, they were kept there for 2 weeks or so before anyone found out about it. The police didn't even inform their parents that this had happened. They just threw them in there and left them, giving them minimal food and water. And um it wasn't until eventually they the NAACP got wind of it and sent a photographer down to try and get proof that this was going on. And they did so. We used some of the pictures in that piece because I was like, how could you not? They're incredible. And that is what sparked the movement to get them out from the state legislature all the way into the federal legislature to get these girls out of there. And eventually they were released.
And
And
it,
this, I mean, this story
it's
it was incredible.
horrendous.
I just thought about, I was like, I don't have children, but if someone I don't care if they're a police officer, if they took my daughter and locked her up and did not inform me that this was going on for 2 weeks,
That would be
I
another
mean,
story altogether, wouldn't
oh,
it?
I'm getting locked up at that point. Like, I mean,
Right.
this is no, this is a huge
It's
problem.
inhumane what was done.
Right.
And I was, like I said, I was reading up on it. And I mean, of course, you know, they were hosed down, and the kids
Hmm.
went because they created and this organization, as it were, of it was really activism, and it was
Hmm.
social, activism. And when Dr. King's speech was in 64 was coming out, I believe, if I got my facts straight, they were in the jail cells. They were singing like hymnals, and they were singing songs
Yeah.
of resistance. And these are kids. These are minors. These are
These were
kids.
children.
They
Yes.
were children. And
Absolutely.
that gives me such great hope that social change can come, because 2020 has been a year of social change, and it's
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
we're only just begun with that. And we're understanding, I think, in this country, new ways to come together and to understand each other's situations, and hopefully work together for a better world. And these people, these young kids, were in this horrible, inhumane situation. And the fact that they made it through it, but the fact that it was allowed to happen is just one small piece of the social injustice that has been going on for forever in this country. And
Yeah.
just to
Oh,
see,
yeah.
to spotlight this, I mean, this is a moment in Black history, as it's called, celebrating Black history, that
Hmm.
is something
It
that's
was.
just awe-inspiring.
Oh, the story itself shocked me. I remember when we got back in the car to drive back to Savannah. I remember it was the only thing we could talk about between Kim and I. And I just remember telling her, I was like, I can't tell you how absolutely mad I am about this, like now. And I'm like, I will do my best to tell this story to make people as mad as I am that this happened, and to recognize that this is a that this these girls should get recognition as civil rights pioneers, because they were doing virtually their version of a sit-in, and they got arrested, if you will. It's
Yeah.
more of an abduction than anything, but
Yeah, it was more than arrested.
uh,
It's, I'm in an article I was looking at. I mean, um, I'm looking at it right now, and there's more than it's more than a handful of kids, and
Mm,
it's it's just very, and you can see them behind bars. And the funny thing is, I don't mean funny to be funny, but
right.
the uh, the thing
Peculiar.
about the picture of it is they're all smiling. They're behind
Hmm.
bars and they're smiling,
Yeah.
and I love that. And it was and I want to get it right here because this happened in July of '63. It was 15 girls,
Yeah.
and their ages were 12 to 15.
Right.
And this is um, they were able to put together this Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, that came out of this craziness that was the Leesburg Stockade Girls, this whole incident. And thank you for, for Kim for bringing that to your attention, and then thank you for you doing that. I have not seen this, but I do want to, and that's a question I want to ask you. Where can some people see these works like
Um,
that you've done here?
most of the works that I've done have won awards because you want, I guess you want to show those off, right?
Yeah.
Those can be found at drewhuntvideo.com on my website.
Okay.
Um, and particularly the Leesburg Stockade Girls piece is on there, as well as I believe the Hurricane piece is on there as well. If you haven't seen that one, and I think and if it's not on there, if you go to vimeo.com/drewhunt, you
Okay.
can that'll go to my Vimeo page, which has
Everything.
virtually all of my video
Yeah,
content.
everything. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm one of
and
your
they are
followers, by
definitely
the
on
way, on
there.
there. I've been following you for a long time. It
Thank you.
doesn't tell you who's following, but yeah,
Oh,
I've been watching your career with great interest.
thank you.
So
Excellent.
we hit some heavy stuff there, but I mean, there's,
Oh yeah.
these are important things. You did, let's see, and I want to make sure I get it right. You had the Georgia Associated Press Award, Excellence in Photojournalism for your videography on 9/11 Marine recruits.
Right. That was the first professional award I ever won.
Really?
It was in 2002.
Hmm.
I was working for WJCL at that time. And my reporter Christy Fair and myself went to Paris Island and essentially spent sun up to sundown at Paris Island, and focusing on a specific group of Marines, recruits who joined because of the 9/11 attacks. Like the attacks themselves, they went, I have to do something, and immediately enlisted. And so we kind of focused on them. And of course, Paris Island is the Marine Corps, training center, and it's right
Right.
in the backyard. So it was a pretty eye opening experience because most of the people that we talked to, most of the Marines we talked to were from New York, New York City, or Brooklyn, or the Bronx, any of the boroughs in there, and and to really hear how that affected them, personally, as we were all affected by the events. But to the point that these people thought, you know what, I've got to go back, I've got to go do something, for this country and go defend it, was pretty
Yeah.
admirable. And it was nice to be able to focus on them, and really tell this story.
It's, until we hit 2020, I never thought I'd have an experience like 9/11 was, the days of sitting on the couch watching endless news feeds, wondering,
Right.
what was going to happen next. And then we get to 2020, and 2020 is like, here, hold my whatever.
Yeah,
And
insert beverage.
yeah, and I it's a these pivotal moments in history. It's important to capture them on film, as it were, in that medium, because people forget their history. People forget over time. I think we forget. We're so in the here and now, and we're on to the next thing, that we forget sometimes. What we've all collectively been through. And I know people probably will make a pact like Fight Club after 2020. Nobody talks about Fight Club. Nobody talks about
Not
2020.
talking about 2020 again.
Yeah, we're just looking forward. We're all looking.
All the history years will go 2019 to 21 and just be like, what happened
Yeah,
in
we'll just
2020? We don't
omit
talk
that.
about that.
There's an
It's out.
asterisk there for
It's
that.
out.
But it's important. It's important to do hard hitting stuff. Now I do see also that you did a piece on African American cemeteries. Is
Yes.
that what was that
There is
about?
a cemetery in Bluffton. I believe it's in Bluff. Yeah, it's in Bluff. It's near Old Town Bluffton.
Mhm.
Off 46 as you go in. That you, unless you knew it was there, you would have no idea it was there. It kind of looks like a field, and it's filled with a lot of African American graves, and it's almost I say almost segregated. I mean, there is a fence that actually segregates it, but um, it's there are some white people buried in this cemetery as well, but it is a predominantly African American cemetery. It's fairly old, dating back to the early 20th century, and it's rich with histories and traditions of African American burials. So, passed down from the times of slavery, and the way they would lay the bodies, the way, the markings that are actually
Right.
on the cemeteries, the trinkets and tokens that are left on the cemeteries, and stuff like that. And we, myself and my reporter Renee LaSalle, went and did a feature piece on that,
Mhm.
and it was pretty eye opening, and I really, really had a great time telling that story because I found it quite fascinating myself, and I thought if I could tell it in a compelling enough way, people would as well. They wouldn't just think of it as just, oh, it's a cemetery with some old things in it. I'm like, no,
Right.
this is really,
It's
it's
rich
different
history.
than right. It's different than walking through Colonial Cemetery in downtown Savannah.
Mhm.
It's much, it's more different than walking through Bonaventure. It's very much its own entity, and it was pretty cool to go, and I was really happy we got to do a feature on that.
Cool. Um, you have a lot of things going for you here. A lot of um, stuff that you've done. It's like I feel like it's impossible to cover it in the whole time. Um, I think what I'm going to do right now is take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to kind of change it up a little bit and talk about the 48-hour film project.
Oh, I love that. So much
That's that's something that's kind of dear to our hearts that we've both been involved with, and so anyway, you're listening to Savannah on Film with my guest Drew Hunt, a multi-talented gentleman here, and we're going to get back and we're going to be talking about that. We've got some other things we're going to be talking about too, and some hows and whys, and maybe some good advice for those that are want to get to the level this gentleman's acquired in his life, and he'll probably tell us about that hard work and determination that got him there. So stick with us as we have these few messages, and we'll be back on Savannah on Film.
Georgia voters will determine the future of the United States Senate with a runoff election on January 5th, 2021, for both U.S. senators from Georgia. The voter registration deadline for the January runoff election is December 7th, 2020. So if you are not already registered to vote in Georgia, now is the time to register to vote so you can vote in January. Then you need to vote in January. Registration and voting are both easy to do and are critical to preserving our democracy. The fate of the nation is in your hands.
This is a message from the Georgia State Department of Public Health. Social distancing means minimizing contact with people. It also means that if you are near someone in public, try to stay at least 6 feet away. The less contact people have with one another means the less opportunity for the virus to spread. Slowing the spread of the virus means that we can keep our healthcare system from becoming overwhelmed. More information can be found at dph.georgia.gov. Disasters don't stop even during a pandemic. The Red Cross is here to help when disasters strike. They respond to a disaster every 8 minutes. They help people to prepare for disasters, and they help prevent disasters such as home fires. The Red Cross saves lives by providing blood. And now, free COVID 19 antibody testing is available when donating blood with the Red Cross. More information about Red Cross services and donating blood can be found at www.redcross.org.
WRU listeners like you crave exploration and discovery. That's how we can offer your business or organization a unique way to separate your name from the clutter inherent in commercial radio advertising. Underwriting on non commercial WRUU will make your name stand out because we allow only a limited number of sponsorships per hour. And your message will be reaching listeners who are actively engaged in programs that demand their attention. Let our team build a customized plan to meet your marketing goals by linking your name to our unique music and talk programs. For more information, email underwriting@wruu.org.
You're listening to WRUULP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with global soul.
And we are back here on Sven on Film. I'm your host, Ed Ciucevich. We're here every Saturday night on the wonderful WRUU, which was recently voted second year in a row as Best Talk Radio in the Connect Savannah poll there. So we so appreciate that. The radio station really does. We try to bring you a great diverse amount of content here. And here on Savannah on Film, I talk to people in the industry and related fields and in the film industry and in television industries. And we've got Drew Hunt with us. And Drew has got 10 million things that he's accomplished in his career. He works as the director of production now for the Tate Global Media and Tate Law Group. So let's chat about that real quick, and then we'll get into some 48-hour film project stuff later and some other things. So how did you get involved in that? What was the genesis of this whole Tate Global Media? Tell us about that.
I working at WSAV, I met Natalie Hendricks, who is an institution here in Savannah, and we have a great chemistry together. I mean, we professionally clicked so fast, and so we just we would turn out such a great product that other people started to notice. One of them was Mark Tate, and Mark Tate decided that he wanted to kind of launch his own little media group so that he could produce not only stuff for his own firm, obviously, and keep it all in house, but be able to start reaching out to various other ventures in advertising, in social media videos. Real estate's another big one we have, and oh man, it's really gone so well, considering there's a pandemic going on. It's really gone well for us. We work with one of the local churches now in producing their content online, so that they are able to focus more on some church events and stuff like that, and helping those who need to be helped, especially during these times.
Well, yeah, churches have learned everybody needed a podcast. Everybody wanted a podcast or some way to get their services out on social media when people weren't able to assemble for safety reasons during the pandemic. So it's become very important in 2020, very vital.
Oh, absolutely. Virtual worship is huge. And we do work with St. John Baptist Church, the Mighty Fortress, and and Pastor Lee there has just been phenomenal to work with, because he got it. He understood it. They were already doing some stuff virtually anyway, and they just needed that extra punch to really not just grow their base, as it were, but to make their stuff more available to those, for people to consume it and find different ways for them to. And they've had a great growth on online and through Facebook, and through a lot of this content that we've produced for them. So we had politicians come in during the election cycle there, and produce some online content and stuff. We have a main focus on online stuff and branding like that, to help
which is
people like
important, branding.
right, right. We could definitely help people in for television and stuff with our experience in television, and produce things that are television quality. But we really are showing people like the value of having a great online presence and really being able to uh put something that will capture somebody's imagination and attention as they begin to see it, and then it pushed forward from there.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong.
Mhm.
I think y'all also covered, and I cannot remember the name of it. The hotel that opened on
Yes,
River Street there,
Plant Riverside,
Plant
Plant
Riverside. Thank you.
Riverside district. Yeah, we did the main red carpet coverage for that with South Magazine, and man, that was a that was that was a day. That was a long day, but it was completely worth it in the end once we got there and the event started. And for having that many people, it turned out to be a fairly safe event, which was pretty impressive. Well, once again,
A
in the
nervous
middle of
time of the
the in the middle of the
pandemic. Yeah.
time that we're in, it was very impressive. Um, it was that was a heck of a night. It really was. We actually had to bring in extra folks to help us out. Like we had to hire a freelancer just to help us cover the footprint of that place, because it's a massive building, and it was it was a lot of fun to cover that, and we got a great feedback from everybody on that. And that really helped launch us, because we had a slight delay in our launch for the business because of obviously COVID.
Right.
um, but that was like the first like big kickoff thing that we could really like, okay, this we can show what we can do. Let's go ahead and try and get our name out there and really do this one out of the park, and I think we really succeeded with that. So I was really happy with it. South was happy with it, and most importantly, Mr. Kessler was very happy with it. uh
Yeah.
so that was that was a really big project for us to undertake. And I, shout out to Shantes Harrington, who we hired to come out there. Is an amazing videographer, and filmmaker, and he really helped get some very intimate moments in there that, if we didn't have him out there, we certainly would have missed.
Mm. I was not able to attend it, but from what I've seen, and I watched some of the red carpet stuff there. It looks pretty amazing what they've done, and
Yeah.
I know friends that have shared on social media their experiences down there. So it's pretty good for Savannah. It's nice to have that, and it's a different. It gives a whole new life down to River Street, that we need,
Yes.
and to continue to move forward, and with a lot of the expansion going on down there.
Oh
Um,
yeah, especially that west end of River Street, which has
right.
just been almost derelict for
For
ever since
years.
they really shut that plant down. I mean,
True.
not that tourists were going to that plant anyway, but I mean, really, since the '80s or so, when they really shut that thing down, it's been derelict down there. So it's really
Right.
great that they have transformed it into an entertainment complex.
Right. Um, you work on a lot of stuff, and one of the things that you and I have in common is we both have participated in the 48-hour film festival,
Yes, sir.
48-hour film
Yes,
project,
sir.
and it's a blast. I
Right.
didn't do it this past year, but I did it in 2017 and 2018. But you guys won you won best cinema. Where are my words tonight? Best cinematography award in 2019. It was named
Yes.
best director in 2017 and 2018 and 2019.
Yes, sir. Yeah, 3 years
Three years
in
in a
a row.
row.
I
And
was honestly shocked with that too. So don't.
wow.
Yeah, there's no. I
And
was really surprised.
the from 2018 was The Dame, The Diplomat, and The Detective. And,
Absolutely.
and if anybody is unfamiliar with 48-hour film project, they give you three elements. You get what a character's name you have to use. You get like it's like Colonel Mustard with the candlestick in the conservatory.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
The third thing's like a
They give
phrase.
you a character with an occupation, a prop that has to be used, and then a line that has to be used.
Right.
Every film that's competing in that city's particular one has to use those three things. So it kind of levels the playing field, where you can't really prepare beforehand or shoot anything early.
Right. And you have literally 48 hours to do it,
Oh
to
yes,
put it together. And it's excitement. It's all nighters. It's, a long Friday. And
yeah,
it's a very enriching experience, and it was really fun. I got to work on Indeed in 2017, and a great group of folks there. And so what was your experiences like, and especially winning 3 years in a row best director?
yeah. It
That's
was.
pretty amazing.
Thanks, honestly, thanks. It's. I love that competition. I really do. I first got into it as an actor of all things. In
Mhm.
2012, a friend of mine, Nate Nauert, was entering, and he asked if I would join his team. I said, "Sure, I'll do anything you want me to do. You want me to shoot it? You want me to do anything? I want to kind of experience this." And I ended up being an actor, which I'm not really an actor, but I was like, "Whatever, man. I can. I mean, I can BS my way through it if necessary." Um, and for anybody out there who has actually seen that film, it's called Golden Guys. It is hilarious. It is a little gross, but it is hilarious, and it has been people have universally really loved it. I don't remember if it's available on anywhere. I have to try and find it and get it up somewhere. But
I'm sure it's on your Vimeo.
it might be. It really might be.
You're
It
not
was
sure.
on Funny or
Look at,
Die for a while. It was on Funny or
oh,
Die
that's
for
awesome.
yeah. And then in 2013, I just couldn't get anybody to join to do my own team. So 2014 was the first year, and one of my best friends, Lonnie Thompson, and myself decided to launch our team, and that's where our Mojave 4 Productions, production name. That's where that came from. Was from our team name, and that first year was as bare bones of a crew as it gets. We shot all night Friday night because we got a horror film, and we said,
Sounds familiar.
you got a horror film, you got to shoot it at night. It's a horror film. When really we had about 3 scenes that generally said it was nighttime. The rest of it was shot inside of a house and really could have been during the day. That is hindsight. But it was a horror film, and it did pretty well. It got a great reaction from folks. And then we were just kind of off to the races from there. And pairing up every year, we would add our menagerie would just grow. We would just add people to
Mhm.
our team to the point. I think our third year, I don't remember how many it was. It was 20 or 30 something people. It was
It's like a mess of people. I
ridiculous.
remember when y'all won. It's
Uh,
like,
it was so ridiculous, and I was just like, okay, this is too many people. Like we had to shoot. It was a musical, of course, because
mhm.
that's always fun to do in 48 hours. Shoot a musical that you have to write
Yeah, I'm
everything
glad
from
we didn't. We
scratch.
never got musical.
Ugh, it's
Thankfully.
rough. It's rough. We wanted the challenge, honestly. We liked the challenge.
I don't know. Somebody got like one of the years got like a Western musical or Western
Yeah,
romance or something. It was like, it's just strange. It's
it
strange.
is.
You
It's so
pull it out of a hat, quite literally, and your genre and whatever
yeah.
else.
It
And
was I mean, it's crazy. Like we had 30 people inside this little house on the east side of Savannah shooting this like funeral sequence,
oh
and
my
the
gosh.
AC just died. And this is mid-July. And the AC was just like, I can't do this. There's too many people here.
Okay, as
And
a sound mixer, I would have had that air condition off and the fans off, and everyone would have hated me.
would have hated you anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, for
No, but
that.
that thing just died anyway, and that place became an oven. It was awful. But we really started getting awards wise success. We had won an award, at least one award every year the first 3 years we did it. And then our fourth year was our first taste of like, okay, we can really compete with those who are pretty regularly in the top. I mean, there's so many talented people in this city, and they all decide to compete in this. So it's fun to see where you're at and how you can improve yourself.
I
And
could see that from 2017 to 2018. I could definitely
yeah,
see
I
the
mean, we
level.
just
And what I liked in that year was that people got more serious about it. They hit harder topics. I mean,
Yes.
I think
2018 was a
yeah,
solid year for the Savannah 48. We all kind of left it on the screen. It was like everybody went for home runs.
and we went for we had more darker material, which it doesn't have to always be dark to be great, but you know, it was nice to see that it wasn't just screwball comedies all the time, and it's
Right.
that's kind of feels like it's been done. There were some interesting combinations, whether that was chance or whatever. I just felt like there was a feeling in the room. It felt like, collectively we were all moving towards seriousness. Now something more serious, but and I wanted to ask you this, you're 20 plus years in the industry and, camera work and everything. I know it's not, it's a competition,
Right.
and it's supposed to be fun. We're not obviously getting paid for it,
Right.
but I'm sure that competitiveness did not go away. I'm sure if anything, it was probably ramped up, wasn't it?
It never goes away. First of all, for me, I'm competing against myself every time. Can I do better than I did last year?
Right.
And that, I mean, it's legit. It's what I try and do. And then you get certain groups, and I'll call them out as they were because I respect them so much. You get, the groups like Aaron Paderewski and Patrick Roper and David Russo.
Yeah,
And
which
you
I got
get-
to work with a fantastic group.
Oh, they're amazing. They are
Yeah.
amazing, and they're all
there's a secret. There's a secret to one of it. David Russo and Marjorie. She was. I'm trying to remember exactly how they did this, but he wrote the script on the way up to where we were going to film. He literally wrote it on the way in the car while she was driving, and on the way back, I think she was editing on the computer. It was fabulous.
I mean, that's the talent you're going up against. Christian Hawkins in the
Oh, yeah.
Killer Fish group are lights out every year. They bring this there's a zaniness to his style, and then it's not necessarily a screwball comedy.
Right.
There's a lot of
And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with comedy, but
no, not at all. If you can do it right, it's fantastic.
right.
But that year in 2018, the year that we won, they did a film called Bias that was about as hard hitting as it gets.
It was.
It was a heavy film, and I genuinely thought they were going to win best. I was absolutely surprised that we had won best film that year. I really was. I really thought they were going to do it because, I mean, they still had the best film. It was a great film, and the story was told beautifully, and it was a silent film that they told us with.
Which is hard to do.
Which is even harder to do. You need really great actors and a director who can visually tell this story.
Because basically there was no mixing in that. There was really, is really sound design,
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
but
and then there's groups like Odd Lot who always turn out a solid project.
they always show up.
And I collaborate a lot with them outside of the 48, shooting things with them. And I love working with all of these individuals like that because it's you have this creative synergy with each other as you're working together, and then the 48 comes around and it's just like, hey, you're my friend, but don't talk to me for the next weekend because this
You're
is
my competitor.
yeah, you do. You
get in that mode, and you're just like
competitive. It just happens. And
I was amazing. Like the scripts got even better, I think, and I was telling David, as much as I loved Indeed, which I thought was fantastic. And when he got to Cello was just a next level. And I was ready for something darker. And we just, a fabulous group. It was just that one group, and it felt like a moment in time, and we did a lot of good fun things together. And maybe soon in the future,
Yeah. Oh, I certainly missed it this year. I think so. It was one of those things. We came in. Oh God, it's always hard to say. Like, I guess second runner up or third place. However you want to break that. But like, we were third place, and then we had won in 2018, and then 2019 we came in second place. And I really thought in 2020, I was like, you know what? I don't know that I'm going to do it this year. I've done it 6 years in a row. and I know after every single one of them, like, I'm not doing it again next year. Like, I'm that exhausted. I'm just
Right.
like, I'm not doing it again. Give it 6 months. The bug bites, and I'm back in it.
Yeah.
And this one, I was like, I really don't know that I want to do it again. And then the pandemic hit, and it was like, you can't do it again. And at that point, I was like, I
Which
want
I
to
think
do it
is,
again.
I think
and
2021, everybody's going to want to do it.
Oh,
Everybody's
and
going
I
to want to
hope
be
so.
doing.
I genuinely hope so. I love it when we have big turnouts for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And credit Anthony Paderewski for getting out there and
Definitely.
pushing this thing and still keeping it alive in this city. It almost died. And he really, over the 10 years or so that he's done this, he has
He's
he
kept it going.
yeah, he's kept the whole thing going.
Because I remember it was at the Children's Theater, and then the last year it was at Royal Cinemas in town, or actually in Pooler, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I mean, it's always has been. So,
Okay. There we go.
and we
yeah.
just we always have a good competition. I learn a lot whenever I go do this thing.
Oh yeah. Definitely.
I'll usually ask the judges, ask Anthony, ask anybody, what were some of our hindrances in our film? What did you see as the weak points? What did you see as the strong points? And try and learn every year about how I can change this thing and make it better. And make myself better, and then make my team better. Bring up those, because honestly, most of the people that I work with on these are amateurs or don't even do anything in this industry. One of the leading actors I use every time is a lawyer. He's not an actor. Let's just,
But it works.
he loves it. He loves doing it, and he ended up winning Best Actor the for the Dame Diplomat and Detective.
Yeah.
And he's not an actor, so it's fun to see those kind of people succeed in what is this kind of community fun event that I mean, children participate in this event. Literal children go make movies in 48 hours. That's really, and they do an amazing job. It's
There was a
ridiculous.
group that did it on their phone.
Yes, they
And it
shot the
was,
whole thing on phones, and it
yeah,
didn't look bad. Like, it looked good.
looked
I
good.
was so impressed.
And
Yeah,
technology has
I
made a
love that.
leap forward since. Yeah.
I mean, anybody out there listening who's ever questioned about doing one of those, go do it. Go
It,
do it. Go get a group
it's
of friends
fun.
together. It will be you will have a blast doing it, and you'll be surprised of what you can do. And then in the end, you made a short film. You made a actual short film in 48 hours. Like, it's an impressive feat.
And it shouldn't take a festival just to do that. It's a good way to get you energized throughout the year to say, hey, I can put together, you might want to take more than 48 hours to plan it out, but it could be done,
Right.
If you got a
Absolutely.
good concept and everything for it. And it won some other awards, like it went to the Southeast Regional Film Festival, the Vegas Movie Awards, the Spotlight Short Film Awards, and it was several others that it went to. So
Yeah, that one really had some legs, and I it sounds weird to say that I was surprised by that, but I was. I was like, man, this thing has really got a chance to make some noise. That's pretty cool.
it is
I
pretty
I,
neat.
I for being a 48-hour film, like, it had life outside of the 48-hour film project, and I thought that was a kind of a neat thing. You these things can live on past the festival weekend that you do that.
Right. And
Pretty cool.
they get a life of their own, kind of a cult following online,
Yeah,
and it's interesting to see that.
yeah, it's pretty cool.
So, we've got a lot more to cover, and it's going to be coming up when we get into our next hour here. So, if you're listening on the radio, we're going to be in a minute. We're going to be continuing all of this. Little conversation continues on Savannah on Film on YouTube, and we invite you to, after the radio show, to jump online to YouTube at Savannah on Film, and you can interact with Drew and myself, and we'll be taking your questions and comments. And we're going to be getting into a lot more stuff, digging a little bit deeper. I'm trying to think of because we're gonna talk about a lot more stuff. We're gonna get into like podcasting, so there's a little bit of a tease. We're gonna talk about your venturing into podcast. One of my favorite things to do in life is to podcast, and something I'm very passionate about as well. And so I'm interested to talk about your journey. So we're going to be doing that coming up. And with that said, I think we're going to have to bring this radio portion to a close. But I just want to remind people that if you're looking to see some of Drew's work, you can find him on Vimeo. It's vimeo.com/Drew Hunt. An easy name to say, much easier than mine.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I'd still butcher it. I can't.
Yeah, Ciucevich. So yeah, try to spell that. But yeah, Dr. Seuss it is. And I've heard a lot. You can also go to drewhuntvideo.com to check out some of the amazing work that Drew has done throughout his career. And there's Mojave like the number 4 films.com. And we'll talk about Mojave in a second. So I think we've got to wrap the show for the radio. So we're going to wrap it here for the radio. So just if you're watching the video, hang on there. Don't go anywhere. And anyway, in case I don't see anybody, new show between now and Christmas time. Merry Christmas to everyone out there, and whatever holidays you're celebrating throughout this year, this wonderful year of 2020 that's been nothing but, oh my gosh, I don't want to turn the TV on or pick up my phone and find out what's going on. I'm glad that we have a radio station like we do here that brings us just a lot of great fun content, and we have I'm thankful this year for this show, Savannah on Film, that I'm able to talk to such wonderful people in the industry like Drew and get great perspectives. And in the next hour, we're going to be talking about some things and what your thoughts are for people coming up in the industry. So I'm going to pick your brain for that, Drew. So anyway, we're going to roll out with our outro here, and thank y'all for listening on 107.5 FM, WRUU. We are community radio with global soul. And thank you, Drew. And we'll be back. And y'all take care. You have been listening to another episode of Savannah on Film, where we give a voice to the Savannah film community. Please like our Facebook page, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow us on Twitter. This program was originally broadcast on 107.5 FM in Savannah, Georgia, and worldwide on www.wruu.org. Join us next time for more intriguing insights into the vibrant Savannah film community here at Savannah on Film. And we are back. Welcome to the second hour.
After hours, post show.
The after hours, the bonus content.
Exclusive content.
Dun, dun, dun. Only available here on Savannah on Film on Facebook. So I'm going to say, as you're joining us here, as we're into this second hour, please hit that subscribe button on the channel, and we're going to talk about you've got a YouTube channel. We're going to be talking about that too, Drew. And anyway, so give us a thumbs up on the video if you're enjoying what you're seeing, and hopefully you're asking your questions. Yeah, I'm looking at you. Ask your questions and your comments here in the chat, and hopefully you've been doing that while you're watching here on the radio and projecting forward. So Drew Hunt, just to bring everybody up to speed in case you just joined us for this second hour. And he has over 20 years of being an award-winning director, videographer, photographer, and just an industry professional. He's worked in several radio stations. Well, maybe you have. I don't know. TV stations.
That's something I haven't done.
Yeah. But today you were on one.
I
Mm,
know, right?
there you
Hey,
go. I don't know if you've been interviewed on the radio, but you were interviewed on the
I
radio.
have made noise on the radio before.
Okay.
Shooting a segment for a TV show one time. It was live on air, but yeah, not actually interviewed on the radio. No.
Okay.
So there you
Interview, I like to call this a conversation between friends.
absolutely,
So
and that's what it
uh,
feels like.
what people don't know, and I don't know if I've probably recorded, I don't know if I'll ever release it, but we talked for probably 20 or 30 minutes. We're doing a sound check and I
Yeah.
realized, oh my gosh, we're just rattling off about the movie industry and the film industry and streaming platforms and some of the stuff that's happening. Like the DGA is not happy with Warner right now because of their HBO Max and basically putting everything in 2021 on the streaming. And we come out of 2019 and there were the possible streaming wars that were going to happen in probably 5 to 10 years roughly. Streaming might have been the main thing. Then the pandemic comes and changes everything. And we were both expressing our love, I think, other than those rowdy people in the theater, we were expressing our love for being in a theater and that cinema experience. For me, it's the opening night of the Avengers movie, the for you, the Dark Knight. Well, for me, I love the Dark Knight. I could watch that over and over. It ages well. Lord of the Rings. You think of any of the latest Bond film. You don't know how excited I was for a lot of films. A Quiet Place too. I think of all the stuff
Yeah.
that was robbed from us in 2020 and 2021. We'll get to see a lot of those films. I just hope that we get not just the option to see them in theaters, but I hope that theaters don't become like, not to, be little libraries, but not everybody goes to a library. Some people, libraries have learned to still exist and evolve, and theaters are going to have to do that in to some aspect. And what I'd like to see more of is concerts like streamed, straight to the theaters. Once we get past the pandemic and it's, safer to go out in the theaters and you know,
Well, it's funny. The things that I went and saw in theaters recently, minus the Avengers films, I'm not can't count those because those are another beast altogether.
right.
Um, were oh god, I can't think of what their name was. I don't remember. Fathom events
Fathom events, yes.
would hold those. I mean, they don't do it anymore in town because the Regal closed down that held them, but they
They
would do
used to do
like,
them at the AMC, the other AMC.
oh, do they? Okay, like the
I don't
Riff
know if they
Tracks
still do.
Live.
They would have Jaws, different things.
Yeah,
It
and
would
then
be
they'll
like
do
maybe
like
once a month.
anniversary movies and stuff
Yeah.
like that. That to me is where cinema is headed. It is headed to a retroactive experience. It is headed to oh, this is something, I've seen this movie before. It's almost like an ebb and flow. It's gonna kind of go away for a while, and it will be this experience to go see something. And then everyone will be like, you know what? I'd like to see new movies again in here, and then it might start working its way back up there.
Well,
As
you
another
simply
industry.
can't, the average person simply can't recreate that cinema experience in their home,
No,
you know, and there's nothing like opening night, being around other people that you think you're the most excited geeky person there, or, you're the most, this, I'm so waiting for this new Terminator film. That would be me, or whatever, Mission Impossible film. That would definitely be me. And, and to have see all these other people that, have gone to the extremes of cosplaying and stuff like that. You don't get that in your living room. It's not the same as watching it on a streaming service. I mean, you can, if you have your home theater and you have, but for the average person, you're missing out on that experience. And there are movies like that have to be like a Scorsese film is better in the theater than it is on a tablet or a computer screen or TV screen, though it's palatable there too. There's just that
I
magic, that mystique.
feel like there are certain films that does qualify. Um, Examples, obviously, like the event kind of films, as an Avengers film, or even Marvel films in general,
Right.
or even Christopher Nolan's movies have become event films.
Right.
Uh, but like, as much as I love Martin Scorsese, and I love Martin Scorsese, I enjoyed The Irishman more than just about any other film I watched last year.
Even though it was a little indulgent, it was about 30 minutes too long,
What
but
that's and
it
that's
was
just
still
it.
spectacular.
It's pure Scorsese.
A-
Um,
And
and
he didn't know that people would watch when he made it, that they could watch it on their
right,
phones and tablets. He's like, and so it's been a learning experience for him, because at first he's like, no, you can't possibly do it that way. And they're like, that's how the next generation is consuming stuff.
exactly.
That's where we're heading. And
Yeah.
but one of the good things that I think that I've discovered or rediscovered, and you talk about cycles, things coming back around, um, drive-in theaters.
Yeah.
I saw some very good
Yeah.
films. The Kevin Costner, Diane Lane film, which I think Diane Lane's performance is Oscar worthy in that. Let Him Go. They're trying to get their grandson back, and it's
Yeah.
very powerful film, and it's a different experience. Of course, just like being in a theater, there's somebody that doesn't have their headlights turned off, or or is making a little rowdy, in the car next to you. But it really hasn't been that bad, because there was even social distancing in the theater, because we would drive down to Jessup, and that's kind of like when we couldn't go to theaters, we could get in our car and we could drive, and we could be in our
Right.
security of our car, from the germs or whatever. And we and everything was cashless, so you do it all on the app, and then you watch a trailer or two. I don't know how many times I saw the Black Widow trailer and Mulan
Eventually
trailers.
coming out. Eventually, I don't know when, but
Yeah,
soon.
and there's a funny thing. I did go during the pandemic. I was able to go, and I'm a big James Bond fan. I love pretty
Same
much
here. I
anything,
love
but
James Bond.
No Time to Die was coming out, and I remember taking a picture with the standee thing, and it said coming. It was coming around April, around my birthday,
Right.
so it was like
Right.
that was going to be like my 50th birthday came in 2020 in April, and so I was like, this is going to be part of my birthday celebration, going to see Bond. And I was really hyped up for it. It's Daniel Craig's last turn as Bond, and so I think it's going to be a pivotal film. And
Mhm.
anyway, I remember going there, and then later on during the pandemic, seeing the same poster, and I pointed down in the picture, and it had a new date on it. It was like coming November. And
Right.
then that didn't happen.
No.
It got pushed back, and it, it's been crazy. I mean, I think we've learned in the film industry, we've learned how to work under new protocols. We're still learning and refining that.
Absolutely.
Businesses have learned that you can do a lot remotely. Apparently, I understand that I'm not a parent, but I understand that parents realize they really need to appreciate teachers more.
I hope so. I mean, I honestly,
Give them a
I'm not a
raise,
parent
those
either,
teachers.
but yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
Realize those teachers do a little more than just babysit your kids all day.
a lot of big companies have realized there's a lot you can do electronically and remotely, which I think going forward, you don't have to have like situations like you don't have to have the big office paying $1,200 a month or whatever rent is, in New York City.
Right.
You don't have to have
Right.
the office there. You can do a lot of stuff, and your people can work from home. And through the industry and through corporate and through all facets of life, I think it's getting us to a better work-life balance. I feel like, once we get hopefully past this, well, I'm not going to say hopefully, because I'm a positive person. We're going to
Right.
get past
Right.
this
We're gonna
pandemic,
get past this. I agree.
past this. 2021's going to be much better. We're all going to put our doggone mask on, in my opinion,
Yeah.
and do the right thing and
Yeah.
protect everyone else and take care of each other. And I think, we're gonna get better at these protocols, and we're gonna get to a point where we learn that we can get that work life balance back. Because if you work on a film, and we know the horror stories of films, and we jokingly talked about, like, one time I worked on, it was a 48-hour film that was, we shot for 23 hours. I mean, we weren't
Right.
shooting consistently, but we had to finish it up, and there's this pivotal scene. We only had a one shot take on this particular scene, and it wasn't just one scene we were working on. We were working on other scenes, but you know in a 48, of course, you have to, that was a very unusual situation, but you have to kind of do that. But these long work days, these 16, 20-hour days, that are really too much for a human body, for most human bodies to endure, the proposed 10-hour workday. I know some people scoff at that in the film industry, but that's not a bad model.
I'd be
It's
all in. I'd be all in for a 10-hour work week. Oh, 10 hour
yeah,
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 who
yeah.
wouldn't be? No, 10-hour work day. Absolutely. I would be all in on that.
Because and I used to work in the corporate world, so 10 hours was nothing to me. And being on a film set, 10 hours was nothing to me, you know. And I'm a little bit older now, so 10 hours is okay, you know.
Right.
And but I think, from a safety point of view, not just put the virus aside,
Right.
but from a safety point of view, I think we were kind of getting there. And I think the virus has really kind of pushed us forward. And where we look at, maybe we reevaluate a lot of things we were doing in 29 up to 2019, up to 2020, and say, well, maybe going forward, we've got a smarter way to do things.
I think I mean, there's certain things in the industry that are changing for the better for that. And sometimes new technology scares people away with things like that. But like take the Mandalorian for instance.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And the way that I forget what they call it, but they're essentially their virtual set.
Yeah. They have
Which,
these OLED screens that,
I
that
mean, and
cover the ceiling, the floor, the walls.
yeah, it's like a giant. It's like being inside a
It,
giant
it's
television.
it's like part of
It's
half of a
incredible,
stage.
but
Yeah.
it's photorealistic, and they can on the fly change the background to what they need, and it's seamless. And I'm like, it's like blue screen, green screen, and matte paintings all thrown into one, and the technology is caught up to where you'll be able to shoot a lot of things entirely inside indoors in a controlled environment. I mean, the Mandalorian predominantly takes place outdoors, and you cannot tell that
You
they are
cannot tell they're in
not
a studio.
outdoors. You
And
cannot tell. It doesn't look at all like that. And I think that's going to bring some changes to the way the workflow goes, and the way controlling the environment that people are in and out of, to make people safer as we go through this post COVID time.
yeah, because a lot of people have pointed to that example of the Mandalorian, and what they're doing is amazing, because I mean, I think it would be even more cost effective, because
Hmm.
in the time of a pandemic, they did have to shut down production for a little bit, but they were mostly done. And then they continued it, but I think they were mostly done with the season, but they were working in this new digital realm. And I know there's some purists out there that want to shoot stuff on film. I mean, I know I literally have a friend who went through film school, and he's made is it forgive me if it's is it 16 millimeter, 8 millimeter, I'm not sure.
I mean,
um
both are widely used. I mean,
so yeah, but it was like he had to buy this old type of camera.
oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, and because he wanted to get that effect, he didn't want the clean digital look. And that's the kind of filmmaker that he is,
Mhm.
and like some of the French films of the past, and stuff like that. So that's kind of the look he was going for, and I applaud him for that. That's definitely being original in that sense. But in general, think of something like Star Wars. Think of well, Marvel, how you have the 10,000 act. You don't have to have all these extras, background extras. You
Right.
can digitally insert, copy, cut, paste. Oh, you need 100 more. Okay, there's 100 more of those. There's 100 more dwarfs over here. There's 100, Lord of the Rings or whatever.
Right.
The stuff you can do, you're only limited by your imagination. And you push it farther with technology where we're going. I mean, deep fakes are going to become I think a security issue can be.
Yeah, I think
you
they're going to
know
be a big
I've
problem.
seen some very convincing ones. I think Collider did a video where they had George Lucas and Tom Cruise. They basically had a stunt double, and they digitally imposed the face, and it's amazing. You would think that was George Lucas sitting there talking with Tom Cruise and I don't know, Robert De Niro or somebody else. And you're going to get to a point where maybe actors go in and get scanned completely, and I mean, Andy Serkis is probably should get an Oscar for all he's done
I
in
think he's
motion
so overdue
capture.
for that, as it were. Anyway, I mean, if he doesn't
Yeah,
at some point in his life get an honorary Oscar for
yeah.
revolutionizing mocap acting, I don't know how else you can honor him.
It's like for stunts, it's a little bit different, but for stunts, yeah, we need an Oscar for Tom Cruise. He needs
Oh,
one for doing his
right,
own stunts, you know?
non-stunt people doing stunts. Right.
Exactly. And the stunt people are like, hey, I can do this. No, I got this.
I got this. I'm Tom Cruise. I'll hang on the side of this airplane. Don't worry about it.
But as we get into like true 5G, we get into AI and algorithms and computer processing that is like, almost to a quantum level eventually. And it's going to be very fascinating to see how films are done because, if you look at, I think of this example of episode 1 of Star Wars, Phantom Menace. Yoda was still a puppet in that one,
Yeah.
and George Lucas was really not who is a genius in my book. He's one of the best, and he wanted to do a lightsaber battle in episode 1, but there was no way you could do it convincingly. Yoda as a puppet with a little lightsaber, it wouldn't have sold. And you can go back and look. I mean, other than the beauty of that film being digital, when you go to episode 2, the technology in just a couple years had advanced, and he's one of those filmmakers like the James Camerons out there, to an extent the Christopher Nolan.
Yeah.
They push the medium to new heights. I mean, Skywalker sound is like, if you have a video game in the last 20 years or a film, Skywalker sound has probably worked on your sound. And
Yeah.
it's in the visual medium, pushing it even farther is what's amazing, because what you can do. And to quote Darth Vader, don't be too proud of this technological terror you've created. It's insignificant next to the power of the Force. But technology is great, but yeah, if you got a really crappy story, it doesn't matter, does
It
it?
still comes down to that. It really
Yeah,
does. And that's something where I think the indie filmmakers are going to start really shining here, because they can make movies on smaller to no budgets, with smaller
right.
crews, but they have stories to tell, and will find ways to tell these stories in whatever means necessary. And I think as the technology advances, it becomes cheaper and more available to those people.
Right.
I mean, it would be unheard of that anybody could be able to shoot a film, as it were, with it's time you need a film camera. There was a distinct difference between videotape and film. Well,
Yeah.
now the cameras on your phone are better than half the DSLRs that are out on the market, and are perfectly capable of shooting 4K 24p, you know,
Right.
video. That, I mean, you look at a movie like The Florida Project that was entirely shot on an iPhone.
True.
I mean, if you have the story to tell and it's compelling enough, the medium in which that it's presented to you is ultimately not going to really matter. You look at something like the Blair Witch Project that captivated everybody in 1999. It was,
You
I mean,
look
it
at it
was
now,
just,
it's just it seems so
oh, it seemed
irritating.
so rudimentary. It's
Yeah.
so, I mean, it's dirty.
I'll tell you this
It's
story.
crazy.
When my nephew was younger, I said, you have to. I grew up on the Muppets. Okay, we all did,
Hmm.
right?
Big
Jim
Muppet fan.
Henson, freaking genius. And uh, we watched Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas.
Oh, love
And you
that.
can, and he was just a little kid. I don't remember how old he was, but I couldn't wait to show it to him. And I was like, I grew up on this. You're gonna love this, and I could still watch it today and love it.
Yeah.
And because there ain't no hole in the washed up. That's one of those great songs. But you could see that at times you could see the strings when they're moving, and he
Absolutely.
noticed that he grew up in a digital age, so in the century, so he's like, oh, this, you can see the strings. It's like, I was like, well, that was the technology then. And when you get older, like I am, you have to explain, but you know, the 80s, we all looked that way. We all had hairspray and gel in our hair, and our hair was
Yeah.
80 feet tall and spiked or whatever it was. That was the style, you know. It's like, but
It's no, speaking of which, just the shout out to Jim Henson. I got my Jim Henson
all
pocket
hail
right
to
in my
Henson.
yes, absolutely. And I can't show it to you, but that's not because it's in a dirty place or anything. It's just physically impossible for me to get my leg up. But I have a Kermit
That's
the
what
Frog
John Mellencamp sings now. He can't get laid.
can't get my leg up. Ah.
Anyway.
Yeah, and but yeah, I mean, and it's funny. There's things like that that, first of all, for the Muppets, you forgive that because it's the Muppets.
Right.
It's like they never tried to hide the
Right.
strings or the little posts to move their arms or anything like that. They never tried to hide that. They didn't care. It's like if you didn't know you were watching a puppet show, then you know there might be something wrong. It was all about the content of the show that really drove
Right.
it. But
Yeah. Yeah.
you think about old TV, like in the HD age, you know, you can't hide anything. Like it is extremely tough to do some practical effects that you used to be able to get away with. Put a put a model airplane on a couple of strings, you know, of fishing wire or anything like that, filament wire, and then just let it, you know, run, and it would look like a plane is flying. You
Well,
know,
Star Wars, you know, they did the practical effects on
yeah,
and they built those models and all. And then when you get to, you know, the end of the prequels, a lot of people were hating on the prequels. Now they kind of look at them in hindsight, kind of appreciate them a little bit more because of the storyline, and
I think.
I won't delve into that too much, but
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think when it comes to that, when it comes to the Star Wars triple trilogy, um, they are, all three of them are of their own time, which
they are.
is actually an impressive feat. Um, you know, the practical effects of the original trilogy, I mean, people need to remember that Jar Jar Binks was the first ever complete CG created character.
Did you know who originally wanted to play Jar Jar Binks?
I do not, or I might, but I don't.
Michael Jackson.
You know what? That checks out.
And George Lucas is a funny thing is because he was talking about Jar Jar Binks as a character. He thought it was going to be the Ewoks of this trilogy. You know,
Right.
it was
Yeah.
meant to be fun, but it was just more annoying. So by the time we got to episode 2, Jar Jar starts to speak, and they basically cut him off, and he's responsible for the whole clone army. And
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. They turned him into the scapegoat, and
basically, yeah.
yeah, it's pretty rough for Ambassador Binks there.
Ambassador
But
Binks.
he like
Misa,
the
Misa, I
problem,
don't know.
the problem with Jar Jar Binks, besides his obnoxiousness, he was a poorly written character. Is all it comes down to. He was
Yeah.
a very poorly written character. It was executed wonderfully. The CG doesn't hold up quite as well now. On the test of time, that 20 years
Some of
later,
it
it's
does.
yeah,
Some of it
it's
doesn't.
still kind of rough. Um, but it's still, that trilogy is of that digital age of like, hey, we're gonna have virtual sets now. You know, there's a lot of blue screen sets in that film. Over the course, especially over the course of the three films, by the time you get to, you know, episode 3, it feels like none of the sets are actually there. But
Yeah.
they're all very polished and very, you know, they have that digital feel to them. Uh, but when you get to the new one, it was that kind of that, okay, we're going to go back to basics and have a little more, you know, practical effects with it. But the CG has gotten so good that there's a lot of elements we don't realize are computer generated.
What I'm worried about is that guilty pleasure that someone's going to take to bring someone who's passed away and put them in new films, that,
I mean, they kind of
Humphrey
already,
Bogart in
I
a
was gonna say,
2022 film or something,
they kind of already did that with
Yeah.
uh Peter Cushing in Rogue One. They,
I will say I thought it worked for me. I knew he
I
wasn't
thought
alive.
it
I had
did.
I
I got confused at first. I was like, man, did they find an act? Did they put makeup on an actor? Because God Almighty, he looks like Peter Cushing. And then
yeah.
as it went on, I was like, no, that's a CG Peter Cushing. Holy crap!
And the technology, and that was 2016 maybe.
Yeah.
So,
16, I think.
4 years ago, I mean, the technology has probably doubled,
Oh,
you
it's
know.
gotten better than that. I mean, you look at the Avengers films when you've got younger Tony in some things.
Oh
There
yeah.
was that one sequence. I can't remember. I think it
Barf.
was
It was,
four.
remember Barf? That's what it was.
Yeah,
The
like
acronym for it. Yeah.
and that's what it was. I mean, he looked like he was straight out of Less Than Zero, and I was
Mhm.
like, wait a minute, how did they do this? Like
Now, for me, this is where maybe you love a version of a film more than the digital, and no matter what they can do digitally that looks good, it still didn't capture the flavor. For me, was The Lion King. There's no way,
I haven't seen the quote unquote live action live.
and
Obviously,
I'm
it's
gonna say something and lose
animated.
every follower I've ever had. But the worst part of that film was the song by Beyonce. I
Do you hear
said it.
that? That's the sound of everyone clicking off of this thing now.
That's
Thanks.
right. They're
Thanks,
like,
Ed.
he
My
just said, what
chance. This
about
is what you did.
the Queen Bee? No.
Don't go after the Bayhive. What's wrong with you?
I don't know. I've stirred up something now, but hey,
Jeez.
I'm the guy. I'm the jeans guy in the Mandalorian episode. Sorry about that.
Whoops.
I put that Starbucks coffee cup in the
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
But for me though, I mean, digitally, the in the Lion King, the digital, the newer version,
Yeah.
I guess it's the fact of not really seeing expressions on the faces
Yeah.
of
And
these creatures.
that was the main complaint I've heard from most people. Like I
Yeah.
have not watched it almost because of that. There to me has been, for myself at least, there has been almost like a roller coaster ride with the Disney remakes. Um, I loved the Jungle Book. Loved the Jungle Book remake.
I thought Jungle Book was good. Some people
I thought
didn't
it
like
was
it, but I thought it
I
was
thought it
okay. I
was
thought it
well
was good.
casted. I think
I
like the
would have
worst.
liked more music,
Yes, I would have too, but
you
I
know.
still think there was just enough in there to give you that nostalgic feel, but they could still tell the story their way.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really great. And you can't beat Christopher Walken playing a giant orangutan. Come on, people. That's
Yeah, Christopher
gold.
Walken, except I
Gold.
saw him in, this is where stuff doesn't age well. I saw View to a Kill, and my
Oh,
wife it was
View to
on.
a Kill in general doesn't age well. View to a
It
Kill
did
wasn't that great
not.
when it came out. Let's
And
be honest
there was
here.
so many things about it, but I grew up as, it's about when you grow up. Like I'm a
Yeah,
Picard,
yeah.
I'm a Roger Moore. For me, one of the best ones
He
was
was your Bond.
GoldenEye.
Yeah,
Yeah, he
yeah.
was my Bond. Like, who is your Bond? And
Mine would probably be Pierce Brosnan from what
GoldenEye.
I saw in theaters. Yeah, GoldenEye was the first one I ever saw in
I
theaters.
bought the Nintendo
But
64 just for that game, and
oh,
that's the only game I
I
wanted.
wish I still owned a
Loved it.
Nintendo 64 just for that game.
Exactly.
Um, I I was turned on to the Bonds though very early. My dad's a massive Bond fan, and so the
I
moment
grew
they
up on
started
it. Yeah.
releasing those VHS box sets, their house probably has 6 different sets of just the VHS ones. Like we have them. I have them back over here, one of these walls. There's just
Somewhere over
all
there.
the Bond films are back there. And I always love them. There's a campiness to them. There's all that. So for me, I it's Pierce Brosnan is probably, like I said, is probably my Bond. That's the one I grew up watching in theaters. But it's tough to beat. I mean, it's really tough to beat.
Daniel Craig.
They all bring their own flavor to that role.
There was that visceralness without the gadgets. It was, to me, when Daniel Craig took over, it was more akin to Christopher Nolan coming along and doing his Batman trilogy.
Yes, correct.
You went from Die Another Day that was almost on the terms of Batman and Robin, not as
I
bad.
agree. It had reached that point of
It was like so
breaking
ridiculous, but
Yeah.
that's what you kind of watch Bond films for, to see what kind of cool tech. And then when you go to Casino Royale, it's still a great film, but it doesn't have as much gadgets now. It's gotten a little bit more gadgety as we move forward.
Yeah,
So
they've started kind of peppering that stuff back
right,
in and bringing some of the Bond folklore back into it.
yeah,
I mean, you could see that same revolution happen though from Roger Moore to Timothy Dalton.
and the thing we have to,
I mean,
yeah,
Roger Moore, you had Octopussy, which is really a good one, but it's always remembered for Roger Moore being in clown makeup. And I was like, that's a very small scene in that film, but I understand why it's the sore
For Your
thumb.
Eyes Only. I remember that. I think was
I love For Your Eyes Only.
Yeah, that was great. I mean, there was a long string of like films
Yeah,
that he did, and
but they got campier and campier and campier to the
right. And
point
by the
that,
time you got to
that View
85, yeah,
to
it
a
was
Kill,
ridiculous. But Christopher Walken was so
It was-
over the top in that one, in
Oh, he's
View to a
Walken.
Kill.
Walken is Walken. Let's be honest. Walken's a national treasure.
He is. He
He
is.
is absolutely. It will be such a sad day when that man
I
passes.
need more cowbell.
Yeah, I mean, he is. It's a man who is so iconic of a character on himself that he transcends decades, absolute
totally.
decades.
And he for me is like Jack Nicholson, who doesn't really act anymore. He doesn't really need to. I grew up being a Jack Nicholson fan because he could do anything, and he could go to those dark places, and he, even though, I won't get into the whole who's the better Joker, because they're all of their own time. I hold them
I agree with
highly,
that.
even though it's Mark Hamill, and it's also Heath Ledger, and it's
I was gonna say 2 have won Oscars for portraying that role,
and
Jack definitely should have been nominated for portraying
yeah,
that role.
and the funny thing is, what people don't realize, this is how our 2020 vision, as so to speak, looking back, and some things, yes, are egregious. If you watch A View to a Kill, there are some things about how women were treated that I kind of I can't.
God.
Oh no, there's
I got one of those moments.
But then I think about, it's hard. You have to judge things in the time they were made, and just, we've got a different set of eyes in 2020 and 2021 than we do, for some of these other things. And I look at how far we've come and how things have changed, and how we perceive things has changed. And if you did A View to a Kill, for me, the biggest star of that film, well, Christopher Walken was definitely awesome, but
yeah, I mean,
I can't think of the what was the singer? Grace Jones.
Grace Jones.
She was fantastic, and such a strong female character, and then, like, the part where she jumps off the Eiffel Tower,
right,
that's crazy, and it was great, but it was something great back then. But it's like looking at, it seems like the more you make copies, it reminds me of Multiplicity, the Michael Keaton film. The more copies you made, the kind of cheesier, or
I love that movie.
That is a great film.
Underrated.
Totally.
Yeah. Well,
and he's probably the best Batman. Him and Kevin Conroy.
You make a copy of a copy, it's not quite as sharp as the original.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how we got to the Batman and Robin, and we needed to do something at that point, because Joel Schumacher needed to be stopped at that point, and he had to apologize for it.
It was like, I want to give a little bit of that the 1960s feel to it. I don't know why I'm doing some sort of accent.
What I was going to say about Jack Nicholson's Joker, you look at it now and it looks so campy compared to Joaquin Phoenix's version of Joker,
right,
and Heath Ledger's, but at the time, that in 1989, Batman, the film, was dark, very dark for the 80s.
It's still
pretty dark. And
it's
Arguably the
So,
best Batman.
it took its inspiration from The Killing Joke, and The Dark Knight Returns, and
Graphic novels, yeah.
yeah, and they're phenomenal. If you've never read
Oh,
those,
oh,
read.
they're on the bookcase right over there.
Yeah, yeah. I've got Killing Joke somewhere around here.
Now,
Uh,
I was upset with the animated version that came out for the Bat. What they did with Batgirl and Batman's relationship was a
right.
little creepy,
Yeah,
and
I think I don't know, man. I did
and
it.
it
It
was,
didn't
and
bother
that's a
me
hard.
that
The Killing
much.
Joke is hard to watch
Killing
because it's
Joke's tough,
so
and
brutal.
it's exceptionally dark.
It is another
And
level of dark.
yeah, and I think they had to put something like that in at the beginning to one for anyone cold coming into this to show some kind of relationship between Batman and Batgirl that you know
It
would
just
show
didn't.
her drive. It was something different. It was something I think a lot. Let's be honest. I think a lot of people considered something like this may have happened, but to see it play out, everyone went, "Oh, yeah, that's why we don't want to see that
Yeah,
happen."
yeah, we didn't need to
It
see
just
that
kind
because
of, it just kind of,
because
it left that bad taste in the mouth. You're going,
it
yeah,
came out. I remember being a kid watching, and I guess it was reruns. I don't remember, but the Adam West Batman and Burt Ward, and then we had Batgirl on there. It was really cool how she was and
right, right.
portrayed, and even if you get to Alicia Silverstone's performance, uh, but
The
it
bat
was brutal.
heels.
The Bat heels, and then we talk about the Bat nipples. Even Clooney
Bat
recently said,
nipples.
okay, that's the worst film I ever did.
Right. I think he
I
forgets
apologize.
he was in that movie until someone reminds
Yeah,
him.
but it's just so we're talking about like technology and how it influences, and and the thing is, you can almost be too pristine with it,
Yeah,
and
I think, yeah.
sometimes it doesn't work. It's like, unfortunately for me, Gemini Man, we didn't get to see it in the way it was originally intended, because Ang Lee is as a cinematographer,
He's a
he's
visionary.
he is visionary. He's got the
No,
eye.
Life
It
of
is,
Pi is in my top 10 visual films
yes,
of all
I
time.
mean,
I can watch that thing and just enjoy every frame
it
of it.
it feels like a relaxation tape or something, or like a
Yeah,
video you're
it's
watching that's just
incredible
transports
movie.
you to another world. It's kind of what Cameron did with Avatar. I didn't care so much for the story as much as I cared for the actual
Yeah,
3D. That's the
I
only
always
time
tell
3D
people
has ever worked for me.
correct. I agree with that because I always say it wasn't gimmicked 3D. It was a environmental 3D. You
Yeah,
felt as though you were moving
I
through
kind of call it
space.
atmospheric. Yeah, but yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's the 2D to 3D conversion does not work. Doesn't do
right.
anything.
No.
And I'm looking at you a picture on the wall of Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace in 3D that I saw. I was disappointed because
Yeah.
it didn't
It
need it.
just
It didn't work. And
no, it doesn't. If you have to 3D, if we learned anything from the 3D run in the 80s, is while they camped it up with the gimmickry of it, they at
right.
least shot for 3D. They thought about things that needed to be to enhance the effect of it. Now they went overboard and camped it up with things coming at you left and right.
Now, if you've noticed,
Oh,
I noticed when Episode 3 of Star Wars, Revenge of the Sith came out, there's that part where Yoda does it when he pulls out his lightsaber. He's going to fight the Emperor, and also when Mace Windu puts out his lightsaber. If you notice, that looks like that one particular image of those two lightsabers were very 3D like.
yeah,
It felt almost 3D. Like I felt like they shot just those two shots like that because you could
right.
almost,
Just the right angle, the right
yeah.
look of it that you could reach out and
But
grab.
when Lucas went back and
It's always bad when you start with when Lucas went back because that's
because
usually
he
means
couldn't leave
tinkering with
perfection alone.
something. He's tinkering with something he shouldn't.
Well, the Obi-Wan and Darth Vader fight, when he redid the retroscoping, I think that's
Right.
what you call it,
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
Obi-Wan's lightsaber. And there's one point where you're looking kind of like down the barrel of it, and it just looks like the white stick that they used, they were actually
Yeah.
using it. And it did not, whatever they did in that shot did not work for me. And of course, some of the things like seeing Jabba the Hutt coming in and Han walking across his tail or whatever.
Yeah.
That for me, that belittled the mystification of what Jabba the Hutt was. It took,
Right.
it's like, okay, you can go. It's really, we needed that mystique of things. And I don't know. I could go on and on.
Yeah, we could do a whole thing just on
Oh gosh.
Star
Let's
Wars.
talk some more about you.
Oh, hey.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. You kidding me? I'm enjoying myself. This is great. I hope you
This
guys
is
out
great.
there are. Do we have any? What's that?
Yeah.
Questions up and down?
Let's get, so, and we're talking about this and the guise of technology and where we are. What are your thoughts? Where do you think 5 years from now, which is a hard question, technologically, how do you think the marriage of this greater technology, greater computing power, maybe what they're doing on the Mandalorian, will probably look like puppet strings, right? In 5 years, where do
Right.
you think we go? Do we go into some kind of 3D, 4D? I don't know. They do have 4D theaters.
Yeah, and I mean, 4D
know.
is
It's kind
purely
of,
it's pure gimmickry,
it is gimmickry. Yeah.
It's gags and stuff like that, which is fine for theme parks, but for theaters, I mean, in the '60s it didn't really work, and there's no need to
Right.
try and make it work again.
I saw one at Disney and it kind of I think it was Disney, freaked me out a little bit
Yeah,
because it had spiders coming down from the ceiling. I don't like spiders.
right, and then you feel it like on the back of your legs
I
or
was like,
whatever.
"Okay, I'm done. You know, at that point, I'm out of here."
God walks out. Yeah, I think I've always thought 3D was a fad, as it were, anyway, and I think it's proven itself as much. I think 3D will only reach the point that it needs to, like its zenith, when you no longer require glasses. When the
Yeah.
technology catches up and the projection is in a way that we no longer require glasses for us to experience the 3D, that we can see it with our bare eyes, that at that point it becomes what it was always meant to be, as this immersive experience
Well,
that doesn't require any kind of external gear to get that.
I have a friend, and we were friends for a long time before I realized he was colorblind, and he really hated 3D. And then I figured out one reason why he didn't like 3D, because it, I guess being colorblind, which I'm
Just it
not,
wouldn't work.
didn't
Yeah.
really work. So,
Yeah.
For him, but I mean, I think he could tell a difference, but not so much dramatically, I guess. But what
Yeah,
if
I don't know, man. I think I
yeah,
don't think virtual reality or AI or augmented reality. I don't even think those are I think in the infancy of fun and games and slight tool use right now.
right.
They in 5 years they might be in a more practical use, but I just entertainment wise, I see that getting its test run in a theme park first, and I think it's one of those things like Disney gives that a run,
Disney was actually
and they
working.
go, "We can do this, and we can do this in films, and this is going to work." You know what
Disney
I
is actually, before the pandemic, they were working on a kind of an offshoot of some of the Mandalorian technology, dealing with, I don't want to say deep fakes like it's a bad thing, but they were working on, they were going to try it out in the theme parks in 2020 or 2021, and they still may be a go for that. I don't know, because of the pandemic,
Right.
if that's changed the whole structure of how they're going to do things. But they are pursuing that, where you can basically, like Carrie Fisher basically said when she jokingly said, this roast of George Lucas or whatever years ago. She said, every time I smile, I have to pay
Hey,
10
George
cent,
a nickel, yeah.
a nickel or a dime
Every
to
time I
George
look in
Lucas.
the mirror, I got to pay George a nickel
Yeah,
because he owes her
but
likeness.
yeah, exactly. And so they're going to do that. I think it's with Jurassic Park, like a ride or something. I wish I could remember exactly, but I did read an article. It was in early 2020, late 2019 or early 2020, where they were going to try it out in the theme park. Guardians of the Galaxy is what it is,
Yeah.
I think. And they're going to try some of that to see what they can, digitally do. And everybody, of course, is against on Black Panther 2,
The digital
them
T'Challa. Yeah.
digital Chadwick Boseman,
Yeah. Yeah.
unless it's done like respectfully. You know, the Carrie Fisher stuff where they reused some of the footage. I could not tell that wasn't Carrie Fisher in there, in what? Um Rise of Skywalker,
Right.
because they
No,
used
it was
they used
seamless.
that they didn't do
Yeah.
digital. Now, the Rogue One thing, they used, I think, her daughter and Billy Lord, is that her
Yeah.
name?
Billy Lord. Yeah.
And then they superimposed, and some people looking at it now, it looked enough like Princess Leia that I would give them
Yeah.
a pass on it, because Rogue One was so good.
Right.
And it fit, like it fit perfectly right into just how Clones Wars cartoon fit perfectly into episode 3.
Right.
Spoiler. you know but they did that with Rogue One, going right into the
Episode 4.
original Star
Yeah.
Wars. And so going forward, I think they're looking at, you digitally map somebody instead of having to have the complete motion capture. You kind of, you do, it's like a version of motion capture, but it's to such a greater detail, especially with the face. And we saw Ang Lee pushing that, and I think he almost made that film Gemini Man to showcase, to prove. It was more for me a proof of concept, because that was a
Yeah.
film that the script had been floated around since the 90s, so it felt very nice. That's why it kind of felt dated, but visually, and we didn't get to see it at the highest capacity. I can't imagine how photorealistic it was. Now, I had a friend that worked on the film. He got to sit with Ang Lee and watch Life of Pi in that same technology, and I was like, it was mind boggling to him, and I'm like, I wish I could have been a fly on the wall that
Right.
day
Oh, that
to
is
see that, because I don't know how you improve Life of Pi.
I don't
I
know.
really,
I
visually at least,
the
I
visual
don't know.
is stunning.
But for me, there are some films where we get into, you can look at some of the Marvel films now and you can see the pattern. Oh, here comes the digital army that they've got to
Yeah.
fight. If you want to break down the whole Infinity Saga, it's really about absentee fathers. That's a,
Yeah,
so,
you're not wrong.
but
Yeah.
so I don't know, but no, I love my Marvel films, don't get me wrong, and
Right.
I'm probably the most excited for WandaVision, and I'm upset that we haven't seen it yet, but next month, hopefully. Next
Hopefully.
month.
Hopefully.
And because Vision is one of my favorite characters that got underutilized, and I wish we could have seen him in the true power that he displayed, through the comics, because sometimes you don't always do justice to um
Well, it's
a
so tough
character.
to do so in
Yeah,
the film stance, because you only have so much
right.
time to tell your story. It's not like television where you can get several episodes or even have Vision his own series, which obviously he's got coming out now. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's Vision was always an interesting character, and I did like their treatment of Vision in this
Paul
in
Bettany
the MCU.
couldn't have been any better. I mean, I love,
Yeah.
probably my favorite moment of him in Vision is where he's talking in Age of Ultron, and he has that little speech and he's talking about humanity,
Hmm.
and it's just, Paul Bettany is such a wonderful actor.
Incredible actor. Yeah.
And I mean, literally the day he got the call to play Vision, he was literally leaving the office of his agent, who told him, I can't get you booked in anything. You need to give up acting. And he got the call literally from Marvel as he was walking out the office. And that like turned his whole career around.
Right.
And it's amazing
And
because,
you talk about a slow brew, like it's like, yes, you're going to be playing this voice, this AI voice in
right. And he
Iron.
thought that was all he was going to have to do.
But if this pans out the way we have it planned, in about 6 years, you will be on camera. You will have a physical role to play if these movies start becoming a success. And it
Right.
didn't take long for them to realize this was going to be a success. And the long brew paid off for them.
And, we have to thank Jon Favreau, who's, along with Dave Filoni, who's revitalizing Star Wars. But if it wasn't for Jon Favreau pushing for Robert Downey Jr. to try out for the role of Tony Stark, it would, the whole MCU, I don't know that it would be what it would be without Robert Downey Jr., you know, encapsulating that role. He became Tony Stark. He was everything that Tony Stark is him. You know, it's hard to
Oh yeah, yeah,
differentiate
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
actor because he so encompassed that role. And you know, it's fascinating. So I'm gonna let's flip it back over to you. What
Go
advice
for
in
it.
your 20 plus career
Get that down. There we
do
go.
do you have? What advice do you have for people that are coming up in the industry, people that are maybe watching this video, listening to this as a podcast or whatever? What would you tell them if they're trying to get into television production or trying to get into the film industry? What would you say to them?
Ooh, that's such a loaded question because
It's a deep.
I had a very unusual route into it
Mhm.
myself. I didn't have any formal training or study or anything like that. Um, I feel like with today's technology and stuff, you can go on YouTube and learn techniques. You can learn, see the process as it goes. So I say, like, take advantage of this age we live in and being able to get this kind of stuff for free. Watch films that you really, enjoy, but study them. Why do you enjoy them? Do you enjoy the way they're shot? Do you enjoy the way they're, the actors, the way they act, or the way it's directed, or the sound design, anything like that, that you find that niche that you love, and then honestly, just do it. Just do it. You don't have to, like start learning about how the business works. Just learn how, you want to shoot, then buy yourself a DSLR camera. It doesn't have to
And
be an
just start
expensive
doing it.
camera, and just start making movies. Make movies in your backyard with your friends. Start practicing the technique. That's how I learned. I learned, I my parents had a VHS camera growing up, the standard big old thing you had on your shoulder. And they would let us use it in, especially like summertime when school's out, 12 years old or so, and we go shoot movies or like reenact Monty Python sketches because that's what nerds do. And
Exactly.
but that doing that was kind of a practice for me to start learning storytelling visually. And for me, the best thing you can do is just do it, is just learn hands-on learning, through just that love of having a camera. A friend of mine got me hired at WJCL in 2000, and through that I learned a better way to visually tell a story. I mean, a news story is a minute and a half documentary you got to do every day. So I learned that, technique and how to tell a story through just years and years of doing that. And I learned from my peers and anyone else who was there. I'm always an open book for techniques and stuff like that, and ways. I'm always learning, always. You know, I still like lighting is still something to me that fascinates me. I just can't still wrap my head around how the light is seen properly to look like night. Like it blows my mind, and I always want to learn. So
Yeah,
um
grip and electric amaze me.
yeah,
They're like
absolutely.
magicians.
It's
It's
incredible.
magic, isn't
It's
it?
absolutely incredible. um I would just, it's, if you live in the Savannah area, we got productions going on all the time. So keep an eye out for anything like that and just go apply to be an extra. It requires literally zero talent. Go be an extra. I'm not talking down to any extras out there. I mean,
No, I
you
took
still
my
got to go
zero
out there and do your
talent and I
thing.
went down there and I became an extra on.
Right. Like, I mean,
And it was
you'll
fun.
just stand in the background. But if you get that opportunity, absorb it. What's happening around you? Look around. Take notes, stuff like that, so that you can go figure out what this person was doing. Ask questions if you have the opportunity. Um, like I said, I took a very non-traditional route to get into this business, as it were. And I mean, I love it. I absolutely love everything that I do, and that's something else you gotta have is a love for it, because I mean anybody who's in this business will tell you it'll beat you down.
And
It'll wear
TV is
you.
very difficult.
Yeah,
It's a
it'll wear
different
you down.
animal altogether than film.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it'll wear you out. So you gotta kind of be tough and work your way through it. So I just say use the resources you have. Like I said, watch YouTube. There's several channels that I love. I love Film Riot is a fun one. They have all kinds of little techniques and stuff that they do that is all done budget wise. Like that is their gimmick. We can do this budgetarily. Here's how you can get this look or
I
this
think there's
feel.
one called No Film School. I'm not sure if that's
Yeah,
the name
No
of it.
Film School is another
Yeah.
one. Absolutely, No Film School is
Yeah.
great. And if you want to learn why things work, there's one. I don't think he's made a new piece in like 3 years, but it's called
Darius.
every frame of painting,
Hmm.
and he dives into a variety of different techniques. He examines Kurosawa. He examines uh, Buster Keaton and like the art of the gag.
Yeah.
Um, there's a great kind of dissertation on Chuck Jones and you know why things are funny and why like how comedy works. I mean,
Comedy
they
is
have
hard. It's
they
not.
it really is. Comedy is very difficult, and yet when we do 48, it's the one that everyone just kind of gravitates towards. Even
Towards
if you
comedy.
didn't
Yeah.
draw comedy, it feels like it's the safest route for you because you can do some gags or something that people will laugh at and people will feel like they've been entertained.
Right.
Um, and that's fine. It really is fine. I mean, you don't get a great movie like Airplane without stupid jokes in it that on their own shouldn't work for anything, but altogether it's one of the funniest movies ever made.
Definitely. And that is a great segue into what we were going to talk about next, which is
See what I did there?
podcast. I saw what you did there, but I wanted to say one last thing before we leave
Yes.
this. Um, is you're talking about having a passion for what you do and finding your passion, and if you can get that passion to pay, you've made it.
That's the golden goose.
And
That's
no
all
one
that
let
is.
no one define your success but you. It's not
Correct.
about the paycheck. It's not about the Academy Award, even though all those are nice.
Right.
you know, it's about waking up each day and knowing that you've got this story that's got to be told. It's like a writer, you've got to put the words on the page, as it were. And so let's this is also a passion of mine, podcasting. I've been doing it
Mhm.
since 2008. So I started right around the Dark Knight. In fact, some of our first episodes, I think we were channeling Heath Ledger a lot on that. But I'm a geek at heart, so
Mhm.
um, you have two of them. One is called the Whiskey and Coffee Podcast,
Yes.
and then you have a video podcast with your fiance Rachel,
Correct. Yes.
called on YouTube called Rachel's Never Seen. Dot dot
Yes.
dot.
Yes.
So, what do you want to talk about? The Whiskey and Coffee Podcast
Oh, sure.
first?
We'll talk about the audio one. Yeah, Whiskey and Coffee podcast. So the Whiskey and Coffee podcast, ironically enough, is not about whiskey and coffee. We, my best friend Durden and I, we've known each other for 20 or so years. Back in the time when I was a professional wrestler, he was my manager at the time, and
You
traveled.
really were a professional wrestler
I
for
was a
real?
professional wrestler, yeah, for 5 years. Yeah,
Wow.
I was. That's a story for another day.
Another day.
Um,
Okay.
and we always had great conversations. We have it's just we got to a point where I think it was in 2016, definitely in 2016, because that was the year like every major celebrity was dying. um we had a podcast then. We had two actually. We had one called Who's the Nerd, where we would just talk about any nerdy thing we wanted to, and then we had another one called the Wrestling Showgram, where we would talk about wrestling. We're actually looking at bringing that one back here shortly. So just more work for me to do.
There
But
you go.
uh, after a couple years of doing that, it just got to a point where we couldn't get our schedules down right to get together to record anymore, and we just kind of had to let it die. Then along came the pandemic, and all of a sudden you have time on your hand. And I had been a fan for a while of watching Joe Rogan's podcast. Just when I watch, like it's more about who the guest is on there for me, like who he's
That's
talking to.
exactly what it is for me. I'll
Um,
watch it, just to see
yeah,
the craziest
just to see the
stuff.
guests. I'm a huge Bill Burr fan, and anytime those two are on there, they're just hilarious. So we were talking about that, and and Durden said, "You know what? We should do a podcast again where we just sit and BS the whole damn time. Like, there's just." He's like, "That's all he does. That's all Joe Rogan does. He just sits there and
Yeah.
talks. So his friends are famous. Who cares? The conversations are funny enough. You move on."
Like the
So
one
I was
recently
like,
where Dave Chappelle just showed up and walked in, and they're like, "Dave Chappelle's out in the hallway. Bring him in here."
"Bring
It's
him
like,
in. Let's do this. Let him
come
join."
on. It's like, oh my God, Dave Chappelle needs to be on the mic. Put a mic. They got a mic for him. It's like, and I watched it mainly for the Dave Chappelle part. I didn't know Dave Chappelle
Right,
was going to be on it, but I was like, oh,
right.
I love Dave Chappelle.
Yeah.
Totally.
Oh yeah. Me too.
He is
Um, and
amazing.
so we talked, and finally we said, all right, well, screw it, we can record, and we use Zoom to record because obviously social distancing, so it makes it far easier to do so. And we just record, and we just literally talk about whatever we want, whatever's on our mind. Something happened to us, or we just want to start discussing random topics, we will. And the whiskey and coffee comes from our two favorite drinks. Mine is whiskey, and he is an absolute coffee snob. And so we were just like, yeah, let's call it that, the whiskey and coffee. So we, sip our drinks as we go forward.
I have to limit
Hoping
my
to
coffee intake because it makes me like super hyper if I
get
have
you all
coffee.
jittery.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I'm
no,
just like,
it's
la,
really
la,
weird
la,
to drink
la.
whiskey at like 8 o'clock in the morning when you're like, okay, we got to record. And he's
Take
like, what are you drinking?
304.
I'm like, you know what? This episode, I'm gonna say I'm drinking a whiskey, but I'm really drinking coffee.
But
It's too early in the morning for this. So yeah, that's where that one came from. And that's it's on Podbean is the current host that we use. Um, if anyone's got better hosts, I'm all ears for it. I have no problem with Podbean. I
I've
don't
been
think a lot of
using
people know about.
personally. I've used Libsyn since probably 2010 ish.
Okay.
They are fantastic. You have
Yep.
analytics. You pay a little bit for them. I've done 3 podcasts off of them. This is not a commercial or sponsored by
No, no,
Libsyn,
by any
but
means.
they've just been a really good, solid platform. They don't have a lot of pings and whistles, but you
Right.
don't need that,
Not looking
necessarily.
for that. I'm just looking for somebody who'll host the thing for me.
They'll host it, and
Who
you
will
can.
keep it there for me. So
If there's another thing, I don't know if you've ever looked into this, but about owning your RSS feed, which is essentially your podcast. They help you curate it there, but you go to a place like Anchor,
they actually,
they
yeah, I
kind of own
did
it. So,
research on that. Yeah.
and I mean, I one of my podcasts is on there, and it was just easier to start that. It was more a money decision than anything else. I didn't want to add
Right.
another Libsyn show,
Right.
and because I wasn't sure I was gonna do that route with the podcast, but that's what I've kind of done. And the Savannah on Film version of this is where you'll hear this, and it's great because Anchor's good because it distributes everywhere. But and they have a little thing where you can get paid for putting ads in there, but it's like you have to have like 1,000 downloads to make like a penny. I don't know. I don't know the
Right. To make
metrics.
any kind of
So you're
money.
not making money there. It's just
Yeah.
a lot of people have come on board. It's kind of funny because I started in '08 podcasting, and it's always been a passion for me. I grew up loving radio. I never thought in my wildest dreams, even in a bucket list, that I would um, be able to be on the radio, let alone have my own show like Spin on Film. And in between that, I really kind of stumbled into it in a good, positive way. And I'm so excited that, you know, I'm so much more fulfilled for doing this show and being able to give a spotlight to people. I really enjoy that. But podcasting and radio are my first loves. And yeah, I've been with Libsyn a majority of that time. And there's nothing like creating content. A day when I don't create something whether it's because I'm also a writer, I write poetry and stuff too. So if I'm not creating something, I feel like I'm literally wasting the hours away. I
Right.
have to
Right.
create. It's like there's about like, and you talked about this, having that passion for what you're doing, whether it's film, it's TV, it's whatever you're doing, if you're in the sound department, you're a cinematographer, whatever you are, um, you got to follow that passion. You got to feed that creative side. Because if you don't, I don't know. It's just it's hard when you don't.
Well,
It's
if
a
you
hard.
don't, it can end up dying if you don't nurture it.
It
And
true.
that's a
Very very
that's a
true. Very
big
true.
problem.
And there's a thing called pod fading. You've probably heard about that. When because there's like this great statistic about how many podcasts are on Apple, but how many are in all these different services, but how many are active podcasts that,
Right.
have put out an episode in 90 days or 30 days or, or a year even. And there's a big percentage that haven't, people will do one or two, oh, I want a podcast. And every company now wants to hire people. Boom. Let's make a podcast. I need a podcast. But yeah, what are you getting at? Are you going to, yeah, we could set you up with a podcast. Like I could set somebody up with how to podcast,
Same here. Right.
you know, but in your corporate model, you have to create content specifically
Right.
curated for that.
And
Sometimes it doesn't automatically transfer to whether it's just audio or if it's audio and video. You get into YouTube, you've got an algorithm. It's a whole different beast there, dealing with. And it's like I'm expanding it more into YouTube because I'm an audio podcaster first. Me and my friends, our first podcast that we did together that went for 6 years. Uh, what was it? Digital Man Cave, and the idea came from my friend. Hit the entire upper floor of his house has every Star Wars battle with the figurines and stuff like that, the
oh, really?
miniatures. Oh,
Wow.
and he's got all the ships and everything, all the battles mapped out. He's a big Star Trek nut. He's read all the Star Wars books that are canon that aren't canon anymore, and and so but there was a bunch of us I got on the podcast, and it was kind of like your whiskey and coffee podcast. We'd go for a couple hours talking about
Just
just
talk about anything. Right. I mean,
now what my Geek Home World one, it's a little bit more structured. Usually it's on a topic. I try to keep it 30
yeah.
minutes, which I don't always stay to that rule, but it's when I feel passionate about something, I'll just go on and record, and I don't push myself. At first I was like, it has to be perfection. There can't be any, I worked on better ways of getting around and the well and the lisp and
Uh-huh.
different, oh my gosh, those common mistakes that everybody makes when they're going into the field. And you learn how to do it better. It's like being a sound mixer, you don't want to have to fix it in post. You want to
Right.
get it right the first time. You want to record it properly, and it's like you learn different techniques in podcasting the same way. And you kind of refine it, but it doesn't have to be perfect. I went through that period of time where it had to be pristine. This had to be the best sounding thing ever. And sound is very important. It's very
Oh, yeah.
important, especially in audio podcasting. It's
Oh, yeah.
everything.
It is. It's everything.
And but it doesn't have to be overproduced, and that's the thing. And sometimes you can overproduce things, and I've fallen in that
Yeah.
trap. Um your other podcast, which is on YouTube, and
Yeah. It's more along the lines of a video podcast. It is. It's called Rachel's Never Seen,
mhm.
and my fiance Rachel, like grew up not watching movies. She really
I can't imagine. It's like
I right. It's still tough for me to wrap my head around. She's definitely much more of a book. Like she loves books. I just read nonstop, which is great because I just don't read. I mean, I might as well be borderline illiterate as how little I actually read.
you and I are
Um,
too much similar in some ways.
but I love film, always have. And so we would talk about, and now, there's certain exceptions like animated Disney movies. She's seen those. But I mean, movies that we take for granted that everybody has seen, she hasn't. And
I can't get my wonderful wife to watch any Terminator films, any Matrix films, any Lord of the Rings films. She doesn't care,
yeah, and that's one of the
for
big
that.
problems that
And that's
Rachel
a
has
prerogative.
is the length of film. Like her attention span. is well suited for a sitcom. Um, 20 minutes and she's good. She's really good on. Even a 45-minute or 40-minute, drama can push it. But an hour and a half film is like the minimum run and or the maximum run. If it starts, if I mean, I've got like she hasn't seen the Shawshank Redemption. Go ahead, let that sit in for a minute. She hasn't seen the Shawshank Redemption. I That's a movie that is high on the list that she is going to watch doing this. Um, but it's 2.5 hours long. I'm literally probably gonna have to split that movie up into 2 nights for her to watch it. Like that's just it's who she is. It's just the way it is. But
And
there's so many movies she hasn't seen that I still shocked at times.
I used to be that guy that would watch films over and over again, and then sometimes I'd go with different friends, and then I used to be the guy that would, oh, you gotta this next scene, oh, you gotta do, and I learned not to be that guy, because I can't stand that myself, and
Right,
I'm not that
right.
guy anymore, and but I used to be that way because I was so passionate about the film, and I was like, oh, you've got this next scene, oh, you got to see this, and I'm like, oh no, and it's so funny to see that I don't do that anymore, but
When
I haven't.
when I sit and watch these with her, there's certain parts I'm like, ooh, I'm waiting to watch for a reaction for something, or I try like we have rules. I can't really interact with her during it.
Okay.
Like I can't be like, oh, pay attention to this or this is she's got to just watch it. She's got to. She misses stuff. She misses stuff. Um, she takes notes during it. You know, and if and then once it's over, we can't talk about it. We generally watch movies on a Thursday and then record on Sunday. So it gives her a couple days to digest the film, really, go back over her notes, and then we'll shoot the podcast. Um so during that time I can't talk to her about the film. I don't want to taint any of her reaction.
That's
I don't.
difficult. Trust
Yeah,
me, that is
oh,
difficult for
it's
me.
really difficult. Um, so the first one we shot was Die Hard, and the reason I chose Die Hard because, well, first of all, it's Die Hard. Come on, man.
And secondly, it's a Christmas movie.
Yeah, I don't think it's a Christmas movie, but that's an
My
argument.
wife does, and I'm kind of on the fence about it. I'm like,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah. I
I don't know.
understand the argument for it. It's not.
I got to
So
ask you this.
yes,
Okay, it's not just film. Okay, well, I guess it would have been a film she would have saw, but are you ever going to watch The Notebook? Films you haven't. You should do an
I
episode.
oh so
Drew hasn't seen.
spoiler alert. Um, we have a plan for April Fool's Day to do the Drew's Never Seen episode, and
I called it.
uh, the leader in the clubhouse right now for it is Mean Girls. Yeah, I've never seen Mean Girls.
I haven't seen Mean Girls
There you go.
unless they had
About it.
superpowers and a cape or
You know,
some kind of emblem or a
no,
lightsaber.
but yeah,
You know.
that's the leader in the clubhouse right now, unless she can come up with another one.
I have to.
But we chose Die Hard because one of her favorite shows is Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and Jake Peralta is his absolute favorite movie is Die Hard, and that show is just riddled with Die Hard references left and right. And so she would laugh because they're funny anyway. Like the context in which they make the reference is still funny. But I'm like, I remember looking at her going, you just don't get how really funny that is. Like there's a part where Charles comes down and says, yippee kayak, other buckets. And I'm like, that's hilarious. One, it's for her, it's funny because it's gibberish. But two, I'm like, you don't understand what the line is, what he's parodying. I'm like, oh God. I was like, we have to watch this movie.
The reference is like it doesn't, it's like Airplane. You mentioned that. I grew up on films like that, and there. The one way I can tell how much I like a film is how many movie quotes make it into my regular vernacular.
Right. Absolutely.
And you know, it's and obviously Star Wars, Star Trek. There's so many, you know, there's a lot of, you know, I'll talk sometimes in song titles. I'll talk because I'm a music buff. I love trivia. I, I love doing rock band. Nobody does rock band anymore, but I love
I
rock band.
miss rock bands, something fierce. I
I'm looking at my guitar over there in
I mean,
my Beatles one,
I'm
two,
not kidding. Like during the pandemic, I was
Rickenbacker.
looking on eBay. I'm like, can I get a rock band? And I need because I still have my PS3 and I have a PS4. I'm like, did they put another rock band out for the second generation things? Is there a new rock band I can buy? I'm like, I am fiending for this game. Yeah.
I know how you feel. I have the game actually. I have that.
Oh, I've got the game. I just don't have the peripherals. I don't
I've
have.
got the peripherals. I've got the keyboard. You can't see it here in my
Oh, yeah,
thing, but
that's
I've got the keyboard and over there. It's over next near the dusty exercise machine that I'm supposed to get on. I don't know an exercise. Um, so, um, so where you've got that on YouTube.
yes.
Rachel's Never Seen,
Rachel's Never Seen.
and the other one is an audio only. Are you thinking eventually of venturing into video or?
Yeah, the whiskey and coffee will probably move into video as well, so it'll be kind of a simulcast, simulcast as though it's live. It'll be, available on Podbean and Spotify, and then the video portion will be available on YouTube. We're just kind of in the process of setting up our backgrounds and stuff so that they at least look decent,
Well, the setup you have today looks pretty good. I mean, I
Yeah,
like
that's
the lighting.
experimental right now, so this is I'm pretty.
I've got lighting that I'm thinking of, I'm slowly building mine and trying to make it my own. And I've got some parts here. I wanted to do some tear downs of some things and some product stuff. I have different ideas for my other podcast, at least the video portion on YouTube at Geek Homeworld. And so, there's still projects I want to do and things I want to add. And I'm adding gaming and different things slowly to it. So it's, expanding it. And but film and TV will always be at the heart of what I talk about, because like my first podcast was all about, it was me and my friends. We would sit around and talk about films for hours. We go watch a film and wouldn't get home 3 or 4 hours later because we're still talking about the film, or whatever. And we'd go to the premieres, the opening nights, and the midnight showings. And the midnights became 9 p.m.s. Then there were 7 p.m. shows, and we'd be at the first one, especially if it was one of those 10 pole films. And I miss those days. And so, I said, why don't we record this? This could be fun, and I wish we would have jumped on back in 2008. I wish we would have jumped on the algorithm before it was there, on YouTube. But I'm like, who wants to look at our ugly mugs? That's what we all thought, and we used
I've always kind of felt that way about YouTube, as it were, too. I'm very insecure about my
I forget to look at the camera. So like when I'm doing it, I have to okay, camera, do I look at the camera? Do I look at?
That's why I enjoy the Rachel's Never Seen one, is because we're talking to each other.
Right.
And we set it up to make it look like kind of a Zoom kind of setup, but I really just did that because it's the easiest way to have both of us there. Because the way it looked with a single camera setup, I just didn't enjoy. I didn't think aesthetically it looked very good. So I was like, this at least looks good because she can set a background up for herself. I can set one up for myself. And it has a pleasant aesthetic to it. So we just shoot it that way. Even though we're sitting 3 feet apart from each other, it gives a better look for the overall thing. And I'm fairly happy with the way that one's kind of come out.
Cool. There's a lot more we could go on, but I just realized we've gone on pretty long here. This might be our longest show that we've had.
Sure.
Yes. Maybe you and I need to have a collab. We need to put our heads together and see what we can come up with. I'm sure we can.
Man. We can talk nerdy stuff all day long. Trust me.
I prefer geek, hence Geek Homeworld is my
fair enough.
podcast.
We can talk geeky stuff all day long. However you want to call it. Semantics are what they are. But
yeah. Well, I didn't like nerd because nerd had a bad connotation when I grew up. Now nerd's cool, and it's different. I know. But I really was the nerd, so that's the bad thing. But now nerds are cool. And so are geeks.
It's great. It's great.
Well, I'm sure everybody's like, okay, is this over yet? I never know how to end it.
If you've held on to this long, congratulations, you have won the game.
You've won the game. You've won Jumanji. We've made it to month December. So I want to thank you, Drew. This has been an absolute blast. And is there anything we didn't talk about that you really wanted to touch on that we maybe didn't, that you could think of?
No, to be honest. No.
Okay.
I mean,
I want to make sure that we cover all the bases.
To me, and I'll talk about it. But in all honesty, no, I've had a blast doing this. It's.
I thank you for being here.
I appreciate the you giving the call for me to come on here. It's been a lot of fun. And yeah, at some point we should do a collab. I can get Durden on the horn, and I'm telling you, man,
I'll zoom you guys in. It's not a problem.
Some nerdy stuff moving. It's
sweet. All right. Well, I'm not going to run I usually run the outro on this, but it'll be on the audio version because now this is the fun part. After this ends, I have to go into the editing room. I have to start uploading things to YouTube, get the Premiere going, get the social media.
I know all about that.
Staying up to 4 or 5 in the morning, and it's like, I've got to get this done. If I don't do it now, I'll put it off. I won't do it, and I got to plan the next time. And anyway, I'm not sure if I'm going to do another show the next couple of weeks. So if you don't chronologically hear from me, if this is the end of 2020, the last time you've seen us on Savannah on Film, then Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, Happy
Christmas,
whatever
to everybody
and enjoy the holidays, be safe, wear your mask. Please take care of your loved ones, and I want to see all of you in 2021. I can't wait for the great film and television projects that hopefully we're all going to get to work on, that we will, not hopefully, I'm taking the word hopefully out of it, that we are going to be a part of. And it's going to be a great year, and we're going to make it a great year. And Drew, I can't thank you enough. I really do appreciate you taking the time out and say that sincerely. I always like to say that I never have anything but interesting. I always have interesting people on this show, and you're definitely an interesting person. And I feel like we've only scratched the surface. So
that's right. Oh yeah, trust me.
Thank you again. And I've got to tell everybody who's watching this, if you've made it this far, because please hit the subscribe button on the channel. I've probably already said that in the chat at this point. It really helps out a creator. Tell them about it. YouTube on YouTube, and check out Drew's channel over there. Check out his podcasts, and are your podcast also available, including the YouTube one? Is it just on YouTube, or is it?
Yeah, the YouTube one is just on YouTube.
Straight up YouTube. Okay.
Mojave 4 Productions is the name of the channel, because we will have we'll have more content coming out soon from different creators. So we're kind of building up a big to-do there, which is going to be a lot of fun with separate shows and stuff. But right now, Rachel's Never Seen is the one that's on there. If you just search Rachel's Never Seen,
you're going to find it.
And you should
either that, or you'll come across a murder mystery podcast.
Yeah, right. Or if you go to Spotify or podbean.com, you can find Whiskey and Coffee Podcast there,
along with Joe Rogan, right next to it, number 2 on the list.
He's on Spotify now, right?
Yeah, he's exclusively on Spotify.
Yeah,
he's
worked just like Joe Rogan.
Yeah, but go over and subscribe to the YouTube channel there. And if you will, hit that subscribe button, give a thumbs up to our videos, check out our content. We're growing here. We're growing the YouTube presence. We grew our Facebook presence. We're still growing there, Savannah on Film, and now we're growing the YouTube as well. So thank you, everybody who's been a part of the show in 2020, and all those wonderful guests. I've got some really top line guests coming up, just like Drew, and we're just gonna keep doing what we do. And so I never know how to end it, so I'm just gonna say this video is about to end abruptly.
Right.
So thank you, Drew.
My sign off line is always, we'll try and do better next time.
It's like on Curb Your Enthusiasm. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Okay. All right, y'all. Take care, everybody.